Welcome to the Arena Decklist podcast. I'm Jerry Thompson, joined by my former, current teammate, Brian Gottlieb. I don't know how do we refer to each other when like the tournament has ended? But like, I would team with you again.
I will always be your teammate, Gerald. For the end of time, we are teammates, despite the fact that we didn't play Magic for all that long as teammates. But we played the correct amount of Magic, I think, for us all. 7
rounds is a lot. I don't care what you say.
No, dude. After like 2 rounds, I think you were not there, but like Cho and I were talking after the first 2 rounds, and we were just like, "Yo, there's like 6 more rounds of this, and I am already hitting my wall really hard." And I think we started fairly. I think we started 2-0, I think, and I'm like, even if we're doing well now, there's no way we're going to actually finish out. And Cho's just like, "Oh, absolutely not. There's no chance."
Man, why do you put that bad shit out into the universe?
If it was true, I could feel it in my soul. Like there just wasn't that much focus within me. Although, like, and Cho said this too. I did feel like I actually started playing better as the day went on, but still, it was draining. It was a lot, and I think we played exactly as much Magic as we were supposed to.
So, SCG-Con Pittsburgh was Streets of New Capenna, team sealed. Me, you, Joshua Cho went 4-2-1 and then conceded, I guess.
Yep.
If you want to be technical about it. And it was an interesting experience, man. I've not played team sealed in a while. I've not played anything in a while.
Yeah.
And certainly have not played all that much limited in a while, but it felt good.
It did. I mean, I had a really good time, and it wasn't just like hanging out with you guys. I knew we were going to have a good time doing that. But first of all, I thought the set was a lot of fun to play. I have some qualms with the general design of the set, but in terms of just like playing the games, the way the cards interact with each other, very, very pleased. I thought it was interesting. Even like deck building, I thought was a lot of fun. There were always interesting decisions to be made, and just like a generally surprisingly good experience, I would say. Like, you remember why you enjoy Magic so much when you get to do things like that, and you don't just focus on whatever nonsense is going on in Arena or organized play, and you're just like with your buddies playing some games. It's a very different experience.
Yeah, it was good. I did enjoy the set also. I think that, like you, I have some qualms about the set to some degree. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I think no matter what, every set is going to have that. But we did not make day 2, stayed Saturday night, went home Sunday, kind of like in the morning, I guess. But we had all been up for a while at that point.
Yeah.
And then I went back to Cho's, kind of like in the DC area, and we hung out there. And I might have talked about this before, where like he had played Arena but couldn't figure out how to get through Sparky or whatever. So
yeah, Sparky bested him. Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't figure out how to skip the tutorial. So I took a nap, and when I woke up, I think Josh was like platinum on Arena.
Quick turnaround, yeah.
Yeah, so he had been playing a bunch, and then I had like joined some drafts and joined some sealeds, but didn't finish them. Just to, I don't know, kind of like get the hang of it and read the cards and be able to think about like, oh, okay, like how would I build my deck, blah, 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 And then I started like actually completing the drafts and playing them, because playing in the tournament was pretty fun. And dude, I've been playing limited.
Same. I came home, loaded up Arena, did like the re-download, and hopped right in a draft. And I haven't finished my first draft yet, but I just had some other things come up. I was traveling a bit more after Pittsburgh. So
yeah, you've been busy.
I have been busy, but the first thing I wanted to do when I left was play more limited. And that's a really nice feeling.
It's weird, but I have a lot of booster packs now.
I also appreciate that for once, I didn't just buy the whole set outright the day it released, so I can actually benefit from playing a bunch of limited and like put the cards into my collection, as opposed to just getting the 20 gems or whatever, which I was always forced to do because I bought so much of the set coming out the gates because I wanted it for constructed.
Yeah, I still don't like that. I don't like that standard is kind of irrelevant, especially right when a set gets released,
No, it's bad. It's a really bad setup, but the fact that I am like ignoring that setup for the time being felt very good.
Yeah, but it saves me like $100, so whatever. And I guess to that extent, this is the time when we would normally be talking about standard. Instead, we're talking about team sealed tournaments, and I guess we're going to talk about a modern deck dump.
Modern deck dump time. The people love the modern deck dumps. Obviously, Street's not going to be the most impactful modern set, but we haven't checked in a while, so I'm good with doing that. And it just doesn't, frankly, it doesn't seem like the interest is there in standard. We could talk about how the format has changed. I'm sure we will. We'll let some development happen and we'll come back to it. But for the time being, it seems better just to check in on modern, see what's going on there.
Well, I need the formats to be announced for, local PTQs and for regional PTQs, so we have an idea on what to focus on.
Yep. And once that happens, you should let our listeners know our goal is to lead you successfully through the RPTQ, store PTQ, PPTQ, whatever you want to call it. We're going to lead you through that system and make it our goal to make sure you are succeeding in those things, because that's always what we were here for. There's no question, like, some of that thread has been lost over the past few years. We don't prefer that. We would have loved to just keep helping people achieve their goals with OP, but there really weren't any. As soon as there are again, we have your back. That's what our focus goes to, and we're going to have you ready for all those events.
Hell yeah. All right. Modern deck dump. If you want to follow along, if you're chilling at home, this is the Modern League that happened on May 3rd.
Correct.
And
just search for Magic Online deck lists. You'll get to the homepage, find the May 3rd league.
Literally go to mtgo.com, scroll down a little bit, click on deck lists. That's it. That's all you have to do. And then you should probably bookmark that page.
Forever, till the end of time. Don't let it escape.
That is what I've had bookmarked for 15 years.
I actually have it on my Steam Deck, so I just push one button and it opens right to the deck dump pages.
Oh, that's fancy.
Yeah, very fancy. I think I said Steam Deck. It's a Stream Deck.
Yeah.
My bad.
Anyway, first up, deck list from Kamitech, Azorius Hammer. Deck that has fallen out of favor a lot, honestly, but somewhat recently, by that I mean maybe 2 months ago, picked up a little bit of a blue splash. It was probably more than that, actually, because it was the last set, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, playing a reality chip to go with Stoneforge Mystics and a couple copies of Steel Shaper's Gift, and then you just get to automatically equip that bad jellyfish with Sigarda's Aid or Pure Steel Paladin, which is pretty nice. Deck is all cheap cards, so if you hit a run of spells, it's pretty easy to kind of go off and gives the deck another angle. And then since Lurrus is banned, you're playing some bigger equipment with Stoneforge Mystic too.
Yeah, and we were flirting with these reality chip setups while Lurrus was still around. I think it's even more important post Lurrus, because you do want some way to play a slightly longer game. That's one of the things that really put this version of Hammer on the map and made it a tier 1 deck in Modern, is that it's not just this very fragile glass cannon anymore. If it needs to play a bit longer game, it still can. It can draw its way out of tough situations. And reality chip sort of picking up some of the slack from the absence of Lurrus. But like you mentioned, adding those bigger equipments is a very big deal as well. Nettlesis, Caldra Complete, those things can add new angles of play to the deck. So still a very solid performer in the aftermath of Lurrus's banning. I often think this deck is underrepresented. It feels like there should be more copies of it around, given how good it is. And I don't think it has the love of a lot of modern decks. It doesn't have its real fanatics, maybe because it's newer. It hasn't been around forever. It sort of was a joke deck for a very long period of time before it was a very good deck.
Right.
Some of that stink is sort of still with it, but there should probably be more Hammer than we see in modern events.
Okay, so going into Pittsburgh, I built some decks in real life because I didn't anticipate any of us being like, oh, we didn't make day 2. Let's stick around and play side events. I definitely assumed that, we would just go home. But I knew that for these PTQs coming up, I was probably going to want to have some decks and then also maybe loan some decks to people or whatever. And Hammer was one of the ones that I started building. It's just weird because it's the odds and ends that I don't have for this deck are very weird and very narrow. It's like Pure Steel Paladins. I don't have those.
Yeah, I think I am missing. I actually went to look at this deck a while ago and just figure out what I needed to fill in. And I think it was the Sigarda's Aids that I was mostly missing and had almost everything else. So, and those are now, I believe, fairly expensive.
Maybe like $8 to $10.
I don't think I can swing that.
No,
for a deck that I'm certainly never going to play. I don't know if I should.
It's not that much. And Sigarda's Aid I had because that was from the era when I was just playing Magic every weekend and was buying a Japanese case
Okay.
when every set came out. So like they just sat in a box for 5 years until they got playable.
Perfect. Yeah, I bet I would have had them at one point, but they probably like hit the $2 or $3 range, and I'm like, oh, I'll never play this, and then I shipped them. So
yeah, or maybe they're still around. Who knows?
maybe I'm like kind of well organized at this point, so there's a couple spots they could be that I didn't check, but I doubt they're there.
Yeah. Next up, Musasabi, 4-color Omnath. However, also Saheeli Felidar Guardian, and then Vivian of the Hunt for the 1-card combo.
Yeah, this was the talk before we went into this new season. It's Planebound Accomplice plus Vivian, and you just go through this weird chain. Do you want to detail the chain? Do you know it well enough to detail it successfully?
So it depends on where you start, I think. But I think if you have a Felidar Guardian in play, you plus the Vivian, kill the Guardian, get Karmic Guide back the Guardian. Do you then blink the Nissa? Yeah, you blink Nissa, or blink Vivian, sorry.
Yep.
Or no, sorry. So you sack the Felidar Guardian, Karmic Guide it back, Felidar Guardian. I think this really shouldn't be that hard. This is actually embarrassing.
It's almost impossible in my eyes. I don't even think it's a real combo.
Okay. No, so you blink. So you Karmic Guide back to Felidar. That ETBs, that blinks Vivian. You Vivian the Felidar Guardian again. You get Kiki. Kiki copies Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide brings back Guardian. Guardian blinks Kiki. Kiki copies Guardian.
There we go. We got there. And you can do that from less of a base as well. You have your Planebound Accomplice.
I'm a visual person, so I couldn't like when I was trying to figure out like step 2. I was like, but the Guardian's not in play, or what? I needed the cards like in play, and then I could do it.
Further complicating this is the fact that Gatherer is down right now. So as we roll through this deck list, we don't have any images in front of us. So we have to do it all from memory. And that takes up, a little bit of processing space as well. So it's all right. You got there eventually. You put the combo together, and now you've won the game. Congratulations.
Well, maybe you get Rakdos charmed or something. Who knows?
Could happen, yeah. And maybe we'll see more of that if this deck becomes a real thing. But
don't do it. It's even when people played it against Twin, it was so bad.
Sure. It was very techie, and there were better options. But this deck is cool just because it does play some pretty good cards, right? Like you're doing this silly stuff, but there's also just a very good base underneath it. You have like solid planeswalkers, you have Omnath, you have Fury Solitude in small numbers. So like you just have a bunch of answers that these decks aren't supposed to reliably have. And if you've ever played any number of Kiki Jiki decks from back in the day, like Kiki Chord, you know what it's like to open your hand and just be like, wow, what am I presently holding right now?
Ham sandwich.
These cards make sense. This deck has less of that going on, though,
right?
Because a lot of its power points are in its planeswalkers. All of its creatures are decent enough on their face. So I like this setup. I think I don't anticipate being like a tier 1 deck because it's just very defined in what it wants to do. And if it's ever good enough to be tier 1, I think it's very easy to adjust against it. It's not just like a deck that will always be able to do its thing. But I think as far as picking your spots, this will be a really good option sometimes.
And there are a lot of different versions of this combo too. I kind of like this one better because you have a solid backup plan.
Yeah.
And Bomat was playing like Reanimator hybrid with it.
Okay.
Which was like also kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, like this deck, you have Ice Fang, you have some Omnaths, you have access to Fury Solitude, you have a bunch of different planeswalkers. This is not that different than just the normal 4-color Yorion decks.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're playing like eight birds, right? 4 birds, 4 noble. So you're more vulnerable to like opposing Furies and lightning bolts and stuff like that, which is pretty annoying. But like for the most part, you can play that long grindy game and then just at some point win the game out of nowhere. And that is definitely a benefit, but is it worth it playing, raw Planebound Accomplice or just like Vivian on its own, Eldritch Evolution, which I don't think is that bad, especially if you're playing 8 birds. But
yeah,
I think it's pros and cons. And I actually think that it's like difficult to hate out in a setup like this. I mean, you could do things like Torpor Orb, which is just generally good against the deck anyway. And I think, maybe people should be playing more of, but generally, in instances like these, if you try and hate out the combo, then they just beat you with Omnath.
Good point. And also, when you have these type of toolbox decks, you get very powerful sideboard options as well and ways to challenge whatever it is your opponent's doing. Now, I often like to not drift too far from my initial proactive strategy, but that's one of the benefits of having a setup like this is like you add in, your 2 Obsidian Charmaws, and now you have a completely different angle that your deck can play at very little cost to your consistency or like your initial setup. So cool to see. I am excited to watch this deck evolve. I expect it to be present feature in the format. I would be surprised if it's a defining feature of the format.
It's fun, it's cool, it's new. People are going to do it.
Yep.
And for like a first outing, this looks relatively tuned also, I should say that.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Next up, Lit City, Izzet Murktide, 3 charm, 2 spell pierce, 19 land, all 4 ofs. This is kind of the default, the stock version at this point.
Yeah, and I think this is also the default best deck in the format. It makes sense. It was the deck that was just completely unaffected by the Luris ban that was already pushing around those top tiers. So other decks got brought down just a little bit, just a peg. I don't think they were completely destroyed by the Luris ban, but certainly there's an impact there, and this deck was left untouched, and people continue to play it and do really well with it. And I'm not surprised by that fact. Extremely powerful.
I think the card Counterspell sucks. And that's all I'm going to say. Now we're going to move on.
Okay.
All right. Faulted Form, 0 lands, Balustrade Spy, Goblin Charbelcher mashup. I don't know, you get like some Jack-o'-lanterns from the last set. And what else? Nothing. Cool.
Nothing. That's about it. We know what this deck is. You know what it does. It is good. For a long time when we were putting together our tier list, we kept a Charbelcher approach on there just because we wanted it to represent combo as a whole. I think it's been supplanted now. I think there's better places to put your combo points, but I am not surprised when this deck wins a tournament. It's completely capable of doing so.
Yeah, Charbelcher was pretty threat light. This one has Undercity, Balustrade Spy, and yep. I mean, I guess you could look at it like this is a Spy Informer deck first that is preempting Graveyard Hate by playing some Charbelcher's main. But even compared to the other Charbelcher decks, I still like this setup better.
Sure.
Next up, Eddie Dew. Green, black, the mopiest of mopey decks. Elvish Reclaimer, Urza Saga, Dothy Voidwalker, 3 copies of Witherbloom Command. This is not that new or anything. It is definitely like a fringe take on whatever sort of like Rakdos or Jund deck that you want to play. And this deck gets to play a bunch of cool cards, but it's just so unbelievably fair.
Love it. Love everything about it. I don't think it's going to win all that often, but I want to play it. Actual 3 Dark Confidant. So exciting. Get to play that alongside all these mopey dorks that aren't very good. Witherbloom Command is a card that I actually pegged to do way more in Modern than it has. I think it's quite good in terms of its versatility. Again, it's asking for like a specific metagame, but it does seem decent now. I'm at risk every time I enter a tournament of accidentally registering this deck, basically. and I never should. I know that, but I'm at risk.
Because, yeah, you already own the Elvish Reclaimers. And
everything. Yeah. I'm ready to go. Foiled out. Let's hop right in the queues. But I'm trying desperately to avoid this.
I'm saving me from myself by just not owning that card. I think I sold like the 1 or 2 copies I had when it got to 8 bucks or something.
That was a good idea. Very good idea.
Sideboard is pretty cool. Get to play Culling Ritual and the 2 copies of Torpor Orb that I mentioned before. Also some Phyrexian Crusaders, which I get it. It's good against 4 color, but that's a lot. That's a weird plan.
Big commitment to Phyrexian Crusader. I've seen this card float around sideboards for so long. It's just been like, the answer to burn, the answer to prowess, and it never is. It's never the answer. I get it, but it's just like 3 mana's absolute mountain to climb in the Modern format, and you just don't get enough return out of this card, I don't think.
If it were Faster Clock, I could see it. Or if you had some way to make it a Faster Clock, I could see it.
Sure, if you have like Incidental Pump in your deck.
Yeah, there's a Shadow Spear to speed the clock up by a turn. But
yeah, I think you need more than that.
Yeah, I do too. If it just killed them faster, it'd be fine. But it's just like, okay, this thing is going to sit and play for forever, sure. But, their life total that was at 10 is now back up to 20 because you're operating on a different axis. And then they just start drawing cards and blinking stuff, and we'll probably just kill you before it kills them.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Next deck is from Death. Castle Vantress check. We have 1. This is Esper Control with a Void Rend. 2 Esper Charms, 2 Kaya's Guile, a Kaya Orzhov Usurper. That's the 3-drop one that kills a 1 or a 0, the one I actually like.
Yep.
I'm actually surprised. Like, one of the first Esper decks that I saw after Streets came out was playing Tainted Indulgence. And
Okay.
I like that a decent amount. I could also see trying the Charm because you could return Teferi or whatever, but this deck isn't even playing 3 mana Teferi.
It's not. That's the biggest like shock I have in this deck. And I do think there is some space to combine that with the Obscura Charm. One of the reasons I was quasi high on that card. Although after playing that card in limited, boy, do I hate it. Like, it was just so bad.
Yeah.
So I was off base on that one. But if it does have any use, it's probably in conjunction with the Fairy Time Raveler, just not present in this deck list. And I sort of get it, like, based on what you're doing here, there's not a whole lot of upside to it. But I just think, like, if you are going to have an Esper control deck that is good, it probably leverages Teferi. Like, it's just too powerful of a card. And that's the reason you're pulled into this archetype in the first place. So.
Well, I think it says a lot about the state of the format, too, where I think even as close as 2 weeks ago, Rhinos and Living In were both pretty high up there and like both pretty big parts of the format. And I think that Teferi was your best option against them, not even just because it's very, very potent against them, but just that like the deck kind of needs it too, because you don't have many good ways of actually interacting with the Cascade stuff. Like, you have counter spells, but if they have like outburst into sorcery speed 1, then you're kind of screwed. And instead, I mean, you have Kaya's Guile, which is good against Living End to some degree.
Good in quotes.
Yeah. They can rebuild pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then just like Esper Charm, which is like, I get wanting a draw too. I would probably just play Tainted Indulgence.
Love Tainted Indulgence. And that was kind of the card as I was scrolling through this deck dump. I wanted to see what it did. Not a ton of it here. I mean, I think we do get to it, but it's just not a huge fixture. And I think that'll change over time. That card is capable of a lot in this format.
So for the decks I built in Modern, I needed to buy some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for anything that would be like Tainted Indulgence related, I might own most of it already.
That's good. It's a good head start.
Unless it's like Reanimator stuff, then I might need Archons. But I don't know if I'll ever decide that Reanimator is like the best thing that I should be doing.
I hope not, because if that's where we are, then the format's probably in a weird place.
Or I just want to have fun.
That seems unlikely to me. That's not an outcome I'm anticipating.
Okay.
Because here's the problem, and you have taught me this lesson. You go, I want to just have fun and play this fun deck. And then when you get there and you realize your deck is inefficient and terrible, you're like, oh, wait, this isn't actually fun whatsoever, and I hate myself.
Yeah, but what did I do at like the Mox events, I never played a good deck. I was always having fun.
I think you went far enough towards a good deck that you were still able to be happy.
Yeah, I mean, the last one of their 1Ks or whatever it was that I top 8'd, I was playing Vengevine deck.
Right.
When you could play like Urza and Oko.
Yeah, that might.
Yeah, okay.
That's hard to fight against.
I was like, I have Once Upon a Time. It's so consistent. And
yeah.
I mean, I guess.
That's true. I can't argue with that.
Yeah. Next up, Team Mentor, Underworld Breach, Dragon Rage's Channeler, Ragavan, and some Monastery Mentors in the main deck. I kind of like this, actually.
A little value Breach. You're into this?
I don't know. It's like you could play Breach, Emery type of stuff, or you could just play a card that actually kills them in a lot of other scenarios, whereas Emery, you just kind of like spin your wheels.
That's fair. I love Monastery Mentor. Again, a card I've always said is underplayed in these formats. Fair Breach. Breach is a busted card. Like, it's just busted. And if it's not working out as a pure combo enabler in Modern, that's not the only thing it can do. And as Modern gets more and more powerful, which it naturally will over time, maybe we do just start seeing some value breaches. And it's just if it's a draw 3, that's plenty. You don't need more than that.
Yeah.
For 2 mana. And I think it almost always will be in these scenarios. So interesting take for sure.
This is basically a legacy deck, is what
it looks like. It. Yeah, for sure. And now I'm like, well, I guess legacy can't do stuff like this. But should they have been doing stuff like this? Like, was this an option they should have considered as well?
Is Breach banned?
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. When was the last time we played Legacy? Probably when we were playing like Blue Red, which would have played Breach. So I'm going to assume it's just banned.
Yeah. I mean, I played a bit ago. Breach was just like never a card I was interested in. You know, if you're selling
Well,
me
because
on
it was doing pure combo stuff in that
right,
format,
right,
right? Like if it's
exactly.
doing this, I think it's way more interesting to me.
Yeah, if you showed me this sort of deck, I'd be like, ooh, okay, let's go. But
Yeah,
instead, I was like building the 8 cast deck. You know,
right.
big ton EX MTG. Is it? But not Murktide. This is from 2 years ago. Stormwing Entity.
Don't like this. Just don't. I think
It's
there's more
fine. It's
powerful
not
stuff you can
good, but
do.
it's fine. If you
Yeah.
want to play burn, but fancy burn, where your creatures have to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and you really like sequencing cantrips and whatnot, I think this is okay. You have 2
And
copies of Vapor Snag to deal with Murktide. I think that's really smart. I think in general, people don't play enough answers to Murktide because they're mopey cards like Vapor Snag, but you do what you got to do.
I agree with the answers to Murktide. I just think you can do a lot better than this deck in most scenarios, and it's hard for me to say there's a reason to play this when you can just play the Murktide deck. I don't know what this is exploiting better. I mean, if you have a really good mirror matchup, maybe, but I don't think that's the case.
You goldfish better. That's definitely true.
All my goldfishes are never good anyway, so I'm here for the interaction, the long game.
Potential upside for budget conscious listeners is that this deck does not have to play Regavan.
There you go. Sure. That's totally fine. I mean, like, I think we should pay more attention to considerations like that because, especially as we head back into stores and in a modern format, which can cost tons of money, if there's a good secondary option that you can put together a modern deck for $200 as opposed to $1,000, probably should pay attention to that.
Yeah, when it was like this deck and Heliod that were the only playable decks in Modern, some of the stuff in this deck started creeping up, just like Iteration, Spirebluff Canal, Stormwing Entity. I'm
Mm,
sure maybe not all of it, but like Stormwing Entity, for example, has probably fallen a little bit. And I know that Bauble went down a little bit after Luris got banned.
Loris,
So if
yeah.
you want to get into Modern kind of on the cheap, maybe not a bad place to start.
Word.
Next up, Make Underworld Breach, this time combo for Emery to go alongside Dragon Rage Chandler and Ragavan, 3 Grinding Station, 3 Mox Amber, Urza Saga, like pretty normal stuff. Eventually kills with Thassa's Oracle. I like the value breaches. I like them a lot more, and then you don't have to play crap like Grinding Station.
Yeah, Grinding Station is the big like X on this deck, as I see it. Every other card is pretty good, and then you get to that, and it's only functional as a combo piece, and you're kind of like resource constrained, I would say. Like some games you get to have it all, and you have your Emery going, and you just never run out of gas. But in other games, if you're interacted with whatsoever, having a dead card like Grinding Station in your hand can be a real death knell. So lower on this pure combo take, but I do think like Underworld Breach is just going to eventually end up banned in Modern. It would be very surprising to me if it's not, just given what it does.
Well, let's work on it. Let's get there.
Okay, sure, we could do that.
Theodorus, Azorius, kind of Urza, but with no Urzas. There's 2 in the sideboard. Esper Sentinel, Ingenious Smith, Stoneforge Mystic, Thought Monitor, 4 Metallic Rebuke, and yeah, just like portable hole, Urza Saga, couple Teferis, like pretty much like value blue-white artifacts. I love
Yeah,
these type of decks.
same, but they're just worse
They're,
than Hammer. Like
well,
just worse.
in the vast majority of scenarios, yes. I think like, oh, this can maybe grind a little bit better, but then you also play against 4 color, and then they just grind you out anyway. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So you're moving the needle a little bit, but not in a way that actually influences any of the matchups, I think. And I would much rather play something like this than Hammer. I don't know why. I'm just telling you that. Like if I look at those 2 decks and you say which one do you want to play, win percentage aside, I would choose this deck every time.
It's
I just think
fun. All your cards draw cards. It looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's just a worse version though of better things you can do. So this deck is going to have to find a reason to exist, I think, and it does not have one yet.
Which is weird because they've gotten so many cards.
Yeah, they just have better homes. That's all. I don't think anything's wrong with the cards. It just like needs something that specifically leverages this mode of interaction. So
Yeah.
I don't know, some reason why you're incentivized not to do a bunch of damage at once and you just want to like spread it out a little bit. Okay, that starts to matter somewhat, but I can't really think of what that would be in the context of the modern format. Like why would you ever want to do that?
Yeah, it's basically if Jund or Grixis type stuff is popular where the matchup is grindy, they'll be able to stop you from combo killing them with hammer, but you can definitely outdraw them. Then this is when this is good. But 4-color just doesn't stop getting card advantage, really.
Yeah, as long as Urian is a thing, I don't think we'll ever cross that threshold again. So
yeah, that's probably true. Choey? I don't know. This is spice. All right. 23 Jeskai lands. Counterspell Archmage's Charm, Prismatic Ending, Lightning Bolt, 3 copies of Teferi Time Raveler, 1 Jace the Mind Sculptor, 3 Snapcaster Mage, 3 Solitude, 4 Stoneforge Mystic with a Batterskull and a Cauldron complete. So kind of blue-white control-ish. Also get to play Iteration, and you have Stoneforge Mystic for a clock. But like, if you took out the Stoneforges and replaced them with like Teferis and Jaces or whatever, this would be a pretty normal control deck. So is Stoneforge as a cheap threat something that these decks are actually interested in? Does it actually change matchups in any favorable way?
Cauldron Complete definitely changed the math on that a little bit. Like, I think a lot of times we just wanted to play Stoneforge Mystic, but it didn't influence any matchups in a positive way. I think Cauldron Complete does get you some points against decks that have sort of that not quite inevitability, but quasi-inevitability in terms of like they're going to execute their game plan and their game plan will overwhelm you and you can't catch back up to it. So there's moments for these setups, I believe. Like, I think Stoneforge Mystic can be the right choice at times. Is this one of those times? I'm leaning towards no. I think like there's just more focus on things like Izzet Murktide and more fair stuff. Like, Modern does a better job of playing towards the battlefield these days. And this would be about a Modern format that's like very combo heavy and there's actual stack based combo as part of the equation. Once that happens, then I'm into these sorts of setups. Well, right now though, I'd have this a little bit lower on my scale.
The Cascade decks are kind of stack based, right? And I think that Stoneforge was not that great against those decks. Like, yeah, it is a cheap threat, but maybe this is specific more to Modern than to old standard formats or Legacy or whatever. But for Modern specifically, it's like you just need to keep your shields up for the first 5 turns. Mm-hmm. And you don't have a good window to sneak Stoneforge into play with. In Legacy, when you have Force of Will, now Force of Negation, then you can afford to take the shields down for a turn. But for Modern, that just seems like way too dangerous. If anything, I would think that this is a thing that can maybe pressure Amulet, but also is maybe good in control mirrors because it makes them have to sideboard funny.
Maybe.
But I don't know. It still seems not really that threatening. And in a lot of cases, they need to keep in like Prismatic Ending for Teferi and whatnot anyway. So
yeah, that's true. The removal getting broader is a problem for Stoneforge Mystic, right? Like, you're no longer asking those decks a difficult question. They're just like, well, I'll play my removal spell on it. What else was I supposed to do? And that can be a little problematic for sure.
Yep. Next deck from Max Attack, Mono Red, DRC, Swiftspear, Ragavan, 2 Soulscar Mage, 4 Light Up the Stage, 4 Reckless Impulse, also 3 copies of Underworld Breach. Okay.
Yeah, just doing this now. We're into the value Underworld Breaches, and I am here for it. It feels like the right move.
Yeah, this compared to Izzet, I think it probably compares favorably. Like, there's some stuff that you lose out on where you don't have the evasion of Sprite Dragon or Stormwing. You don't have Vapor Stag for Murktide. This deck has 4 Unholy Heats, so maybe that's good enough, or you can use it alongside a Lava Dart to tag team it or something.
Yeah.
But like, you don't necessarily need to splash blue when you have Stage and Impulse, and then Breach just kind of allows you to go off and, maybe even bolt your opponent out. I don't know. So if you're looking for like, burn where the creatures carry you, you have a lot of card advantage, a lot of staying power. I think this might be the way to do.
Yeah, this is cool. Like I said, I'm all about pushing harder on Underworld Breach. I'm sort of shocked it took so long because nothing really all that new is added to the equation. We have Reckless Impulse, which was certainly an add recently, but you could have been doing stuff like this for a long time. It just didn't line up well when you could also do Lura stuff. Although you could have done both. Like, I don't even think that's wrong either. So
I don't even know if I can check this, but I think this is Max McVitie, and he was playing like the Boros version of this deck with Luris, and it's basically like, okay, well, with Luris gone, like, now we'll Breach.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, Max is at Max Attack on Twitter. So
okay, good detective work, Gerald.
Yeah. But given like Max, his history, the decks he played, even like what he played recently, and that, his name is in the screen name, it was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is him.
Nailed it.
The Scrub and Scrubs, Elementals, but hardcore. No Urian, 23 land, 3 Utopia Sprawls, some Flamekin Harbingers, 2 Thunderkin Awakeners, some Voice of Resurgences, just really elementals, some ephemerates, and mana sources, and then like a random Teferi.
I just need to check something real quick. Bear with me here.
What are you checking?
A little Googling. Well, I wanted to see how valuable Flame King Harbingers are. And I was just thinking about, like, in a world where people, as opposed to tormenting me with Niv Magus Elementals, torment me with Flame King Harbingers, which were also in that deck.
You'd be rich.
Yeah, I would be doing so much better. And I'm sort of disappointed that people couldn't be more creative with their tormenting and just load me up with Flamekin Harbingers. I do have like a large amount of them, but I just feel like I should have more. And it makes me sad that I haven't maxed out on this card.
It's got to be a few bucks, right?
It is $250.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad for an uncommon. I'm curious. Yeah, the foil is like $23. So that's where the money was.
That's what they should have been, like White Elephant gifting you.
Yeah, that would have been very nice. So boo to all of you. I'm disappointed in your tormenting of me. But at the same time, I don't want to play these Flamekin Harbinger decks. Like, do you remember how bad that card was in the Niv Magus deck? It was such like a necessary evil. Putting that card on top of your deck is just nightmarish. Now, granted, what you're putting on top of your deck here is going to do a lot more for you.
Yeah, because the goal is to get Risen Reef and protected.
Yes, and that will certainly do that. And again, I think here it's a necessary evil. Like, it's a bad card, but it gives you exactly what you need in so many scenarios. These decks are fun. I like that they exist. I don't think they'll ever be the best deck, but I'm happy you can play elementals with like a straight face. That's cool.
Yeah, you even got the full-on Kahira companion for the theme deck.
Yeah, get a little +1/+1. Love it.
Juggernaut. Indomitable creativity with Archon of Cruelty. That, yeah, can backdoor into hard casting Archon.
Yeah, I still don't like...
Oh, also with some
don't
persists.
Like these decks. Yeah, not into these setups whatsoever.
You don't like Lightning Bolt, Faithful Mending, Persist?
No, I don't. And they've been around a long time, and they haven't really improved in my eyes. So I thought this was the spot where we'd start seeing like some looks at... I'm blanking on the name now. Our new draw 2, discard 1.
Tainted Indulgence.
Tainted Indulgence, thank you. I thought this was the type of setup where we'd start seeing that, and we see some like Esper Reanimator. And
it's really tough with Indomitable creativity.
That is true. That puts a large burden on your mana base. So maybe it's just time we give up Indomitable creativity. But I ordered a bunch of foils of that too, so maybe I'm misplaying here and should just be hyping this deck up.
Yeah, that might pay off, but in order for it to pay off, you need to go out there and win some premier events, I think.
Yeah, so it's not going to pay off, unfortunately, but maybe someday. Maybe we'll get a new print in the future. Epic
Win 42, mono red, mid-range weirdness. This one is a little bit more, well, a lot more prison-y, really. Chalice of the Void, Ensnaring Bridge, Blood Moon, Karn, the Great Creator, Magus of the Moon 2, and then just for funsies, you have Ragavan for the free wins.
I worry a little bit about these people, honestly. Like, the people who routinely show up with these decks and just hopping in the queues, playing some mono red prison, because I have tried this before. I remember after I had my shoulder surgery, I was searching for decks that didn't shuffle, and I was like, well, I'll just play some kind of like mono red prison type thing. And I played a few games of it, and I'm like, I will never play this deck again. Thank you. That's all I needed to do. But people love these archetypes. They love doing the Chalice of the Void and Snaring Bridge stuff and a little Blood Moon backup. So good for them. I'm glad they found their lane. I don't know why you'd ever do this to yourself.
It's a lifestyle choice.
It is. It really is. And they commit hard.
Maybe the next one will be more up your alley. This one from Highs. Also mono red, also Blood Moon, also Chalice. But with Desperate Ritual, Paretic Ritual, Planebound Accomplice, and Luca to get some Emeralds.
Look, at least this deck is going to put me out of my misery much quicker. Like, we'll just do the thing early. It won't be good enough. We can pack it in and move on to the next game in the O2 bracket, and that's it. So appreciate the commitment to speed.
My God.
That's at least an upside.
4 Gemstone Caverns.
Yeah, we got to go fast, man. We don't have time to waste playing a long game. We're just going to put our thing out there. If it's good enough, we'll move on to the next one. If not, okay.
I do really appreciate it because you see so many people waffling, myself included, where you're like, oh, I'll play one main and another in the sideboard maybe. And then they're just like, nah, I just play 4.
Well, if they know they're not going to win on the draw without it, so just go for it. Just commit.
I wonder with 8 rituals and chalice if you just choose to draw it every game.
Maybe.
Can you imagine sitting down for a modern league and your opponent chooses to draw first? You're just like, oh no. Yeah, I was not prepared for this.
Never a good sign. You never want to hear those words.
Magic Tonga, 4 calibrated blast, 2 throws of chaos, 16 giant monsters, including the brand new Shadow of Mortality, and 38 wonderful lands. Also 4 Gemstone Caverns, but 38 lands is more defensible.
Yes, it is. And, this is where we saw Shadow of Mortality seen play in the modern format. Seems correct thus far. Haven't seen many people advocating for this in actual like shadow setups. So good. Again, there's a type of person who likes this type of deck. I'm glad they get to do it.
I had someone cast it against me in limited.
How was that?
It was a 4 mana 7/7. It wasn't bad.
Okay. Yeah, that's a solid return.
But it was also like, turn 10. And since they were at low life, it was because I was really ahead on board. And it didn't work out for them.
Good effort, though.
Allegra Bob, 80 cards, Eldritch Evolution, Court of Calling, Eladamri's Call, all 4 ofs. That's a lot of those. 8 birds, some Ice Fang, some Solitude, some Voice of Resurgences, and then Kiki Jiki combo, but no fancy Vivians.
And a super compact commitment to the Kiki Jiki combo. So you see why you have all those Find Your Stuff cards. It's 1 Restoration Angel, 1 Kiki Jiki. And, we got some Eternal Witnesses if we got to get it back from the graveyard. But this is how we're playing. And I guess, we'll try and win some fair games, too. If we have to go get an Omnath, we'll do that. Just like a tutory toolbox thing that can't possibly be good, quite frankly. There's no way this is good. You're just adding an extra step to everything. Like when you have to play Eladamri's Call in your modern deck, it's such a painful feeling. And I tried it a bunch with like Devoted Druid. I thought it would be a real difference maker in that archetype.
Yeah, it's the same.
You can't add that kind of time frame to your clock in modern. It's just too much.
When you're getting Fury, it's okay.
Yeah, that's different. You're getting a spell at that point. So
yeah, exactly. But like
getting a free spell at that. So.
Getting a 5 mana combo piece, less good.
Yeah, not going to get the job done.
The Enduring Idealist. Some Cascade spells, some Glimpse of Tomorrows, some creatures that ETB and make more permanents. Yep. And that's kind of it. Some Dark Dwellers to flash it back, and you just glimpse a bunch in 1 turn, ideally, and create this really overwhelming board state. Maybe kill your opponent directly with Omnaths. I don't know. Chancellor.
It's possible. Why do this over any of the other Cascade things? That's the question you have to answer if you're going to play this deck.
Because you kind of have a backup plan, especially against control decks. Because
what I was going to say is I think like Fury is a good reason to go down this road. Although other decks could do that if they really wanted to. And there's other comparable things to Fury, be it Solitude or other effects such as these. But go ahead and tell me about your backup plan against the control decks.
No, you're just like, I'll evoke a Wave Sifter, I'll play a Tireless Provisioner, I'll cast a Seasoned Pyromancer, cast an Omnath, like if they have Teferi, it's still pretty annoying, but at least you get to do stuff,
Yeah, I might rather have Striped Riverwinder on like turn whatever, and I'll live with those consequences.
Well, I mean, that backup plan just doesn't work. Like Curator of Mysteries against some fair decks maybe gets the job done, like that plus Brazen Borrower or something. I think this against blue-white control is like they still do have to respect your mopey creatures.
You think this will actually get the job done against them?
I don't think it's good, but I'm just saying like they have a plan at least. And I think the reason to play this instead of the other Cascade decks is mostly because it's sweet and you get to have fun. And like
I can't argue with that.
I guess there are a lot of instances too where you cast Outburst and just win the game immediately, which certainly has some upside. Like you get to go over the top of a Rhino's Mirror, for example. So there's some reason there, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, if you're playing a Cascade deck, it's just like I want to be just like as filthy as possible and just do it as quickly and efficiently as I can. And I assume that is good enough because that is why I'm playing this deck. And this is like, well, I do like cascading into things and not casting spells in the first 2 turns. And, I just want to play Chancellor of the Forge or whatever. It's like, okay, cool.
Mission accomplished.
But yeah, definitely not the most efficient way you could be doing it, but it's like you got some weird corner case backup plans, and I've seen that happen enough times. But it doesn't make up for the fact that, when they cast their thing on turn 3, they put in like a 2/2 and a land, and they just pass. So.
Yeah, not the best output.
Trawling the Deep. Tell me about Ad Nauseam, Brian.
I can tell you about it, 7 years ago, which is exactly where this person is living. I mean, they have like Thassa's Oracle now and other stuff, Profane Tutor, but still the core is exactly as it used to be for the most part, with all the same flaws and the same upsides too, I would say. Like you're really good at challenging hard control decks. You're really good at messing with decks that their only goal is to attack your life total and they don't really disrupt you in any way. All those things are still true about Ad Nauseam. And put this on that list of decks where out of nowhere it can win a tournament, and I'm not surprised when it happens. But there's not like a huge angle for this deck right now that has me wanting to dive back into it.
Yeah. I kind of like that you have a bunch of weird combo kill options now, where it's like, oh, maybe I just play an Unlife and then spoils Oracle or something. And it's like, that's kind of cool. It makes it look a little bit easier than like, I have to find Ad Nauseam, I have to resolve it. But now also, if you do find Ad Nauseam and resolve it, you're not guaranteed anything. So it's also weird in that regard.
Yes, it is.
Next up, the one, the only Aspiring Spike, 3 copies of Ob Nixilis the Adversary, 4 copies of Unlucky Witness, 2 copies. This is not a modern card, man. Tenacious Underdog. 4 Goblin Bombardments, some Bloodghast, and Mayhem Devil. God bless them,
You know what you're going to get from Aspiring Spike. This is cool. Very medium. Very sort of not what Modern's about, but if you're a good player and this is what you love, you can probably make something out of it. And I love the idea. Like I love Goblin Bombardment with all these cards. I think it's incredible. I'm sure Sam Black also thinks it's incredible. I'm just not going to try and sell you this is like the next big thing in Modern. I just think it's cool.
I think Ob is good enough for Modern.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's got to have a very specific home, and it's got to maybe get a little bit more out of its output than it is here, where it's still just part of a very fair plan. And I don't know how you sort of break that. I think if Ob does anything in Modern, it probably like is cheating on power and just making huge copies very early. That seems like its best spot to add something new to the metagame. Like I think as a fair card, it's not going to be overwhelming. It's not really on par with some of the other output you could get from a Planeswalker of that size in the format. So it's got to have a unique angle to succeed.
Someone on Twitter, I think it was Cass, said that they jammed 4 Ob Nixilis into their Urza sideboard kind of as a joke, and it was like actually pretty good. And I'd be willing to believe that.
Yeah,
or in their Yawgmoth. Sorry, did I say Urza?
Yeah. Yawgmoth combo.
Yeah.
I like that. Sure.
Yeah. And that deck was already chip damaging you a decent amount. It's like you put on pressure and kind of like threaten the combo. You obviously have plenty of things to sacrifice to Ob, and the chip damage actually helps your, I don't even know if it's like your plan A or plan B at this point. I think it's your plan A.
Yeah, bringing that in against stuff like Jund from the Yawgmoth deck seems completely fine. And you also have like a primary combo plan that can beat people, unlike this deck, which is just like, here are my things, and going to draw some cards and do a little damage. I'd rather see it in slots where it's like a secondary plan of a really good primary plan that can still win games on the type of axis that Modern typically operates on.
Yeah. I think early pressure against blue-white control is great, and then Ob is probably just one of the best possible cards you could have against them in that situation. So okay. I do really like it a lot.
Nice.
Captain Badger, 80 card Yawg with some Aether Vials, and then you have room for all the nonsense. We have the Hapatra and Essence Warden and Zulapur Cutthroat, and even adding some Eladamri's Calls. I don't think it's worth it.
I agree. Play 60 cards.
Cool. Cut the P, cut the Urian. Metcalf 23. What the hell is this? Green, white, taxes. I was confused because there are Oath of Nissas.
Yeah, is that the only? Oh, Noble Hierarch. Those are the only 2 green cards, correct, in the main deck.
Yeah, splashing Noble is not that uncommon,
Right.
but
Going as far as Oath of Nissa though. 4 Beseiju.
well, yeah, 80 cards. You can't play fetches because you have Leonin Arbiter.
Right.
So, Mana Base has some pathways and some brushlands and Razorverge thickets. And I guess Oath is the card that you get to blink for value with your Urians. So
Sure.
you need something. So I get it. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and Beseiju with Leonin Arbiter is cool too. So
Oh, yeah.
nice little pickup.
Little awkward in 80 cards where it's less likely that all that stuff is going to come together, but
Yeah, I would agree with that.
that's still all right. I don't mind this. This is fine.
Approved. It's got the Jerry T stamp of fine.
Of like, I would play this in a 4-round local
Hmm.
if I had all the cards, which I don't. I definitely owned all these cards at one point. I might not anymore.
I still have to fill in the holes in my collection that are like the modern Horizons 2 things, like
Yeah,
Solitudes, Cauldron Completes. I do not have those.
I have some of it. I bought some bits and pieces, but I don't have the incarnations. So that's a problem.
I have a lot of Furies. I don't really know why. I'm trying to think what I bought them for.
I bought a
have
bunch of
large
Furies
number.
at 6 and then sold them for 20 or something.
I just have a stockpile of them. That'll never do anything.
All right, shotgun 3 of them. I think I still have 1 Fury left.
Got it.
Hell yeah. All right, HNSD, just letters. Hardened Scales, and I don't know, that's it. Nothing fancy. Roadside Reliquary. What the hell?
Just looking at what has changed.
Oh, right.
What is Roadside Reliquary?
Land, taps for colorless, 2 tap sack, draw a card if you control an artifact, draw a card if you control an enchantment.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Neat little pickup there. I don't think that's enough to like revitalize the archetype, but yeah, I could see why that makes the cut. I don't know. I mean, like, you would have think Hardened Scales would have done more given Urza Saga and just generally it being an already proven deck in a lot of ways.
Dude, Fury and Solitude just absolutely dismantle these types of decks, though.
Fury even more so, I think, than Solitude. But you are correct. That is messed up.
Yeah, I mean, Solitude cleanly answers things like Hangerback Walker, right? Where most removal, it's like, oh, well, at least I get some tokens. But it is definitely the combination of them where it's like, oh, geez. Like, you just want to try and sneak a hammer onto something and hope that that's good enough, right? Like, that is a much better plan than doing Hardened Scales-y type things.
Right, getting wide and finding little plinks and plunks. I agree.
Yeah, roadside reliquarying,
Small amount of value, not going to make up for Fury.
Yep. Rapid Luiso 8, Death Shadow, DRC Ragavan Tarmogoyf, 4 Riveteer's Charm. Holy hell.
All right, give me all the modes of Riveteer's Charm right now, because you played Grixis, and I think you had a Riveteer's Charm, so you're required to know them all.
Baby, this is Jund Charm.
Oh, no. Okay.
I can give you all the modes on Jund Charm, though.
Sure, give me all the modes. Let's go.
Exile a graveyard.
Yeah. Exile
the top 3 cards of your library until your next end step. You may play those cards. And it's an instant, so you can play it on your opponent's turn.
Yeah. This sounds very good.
And then an opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker with highest mana value.
Okay.
So kills Murktide.
Murktide, yeah.
Draws 3. The downside is if you hit 2 lands, but this is a 19 land deck, and mana curve is hella cheap, so chances are you hit like a land and 2 cards you can play. Like, it's really good. Jund now has expressive iteration, man. Aren't you stoked?
I am now at risk of registering this deck as well, and that frightens me. But basically, you target fair Tarmogoyf decks with a little bit of Thoughtseize, a little bit of Inquisition. You are already speaking my language. And when you listed all those modes on Riveteer's Charm, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like exactly what I was looking for. Like, it fills a lot of holes for this deck. Now, granted, it costs 3 mana. That's a mountain in your 19 land deck. And I'm sure it'll come up from time to time where these just rot in your hand because 4 is a lot. Like, but commit to the idea, right? Figure out if it works. Play your 4 Riveteer's Charm, and then you're better prepared to assess what its impact is on this archetype. I kind of buy it, though. Like, it makes sense to me.
Kills Murktide. Respect.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
And you have 16 threats, which I like. You have a bunch of disruption, a bunch of good spot removal. A lot of options for if you want to go a little bit bigger. This deck just has like two Turoks and Gigantha.
Yeah.
But that's like not bad. I mean, you also just have Riveteer's Charm to draw a bunch of cards potentially. So I actually like this setup. I don't particularly like the Teamer Battle Rages, but other than that, I like everything else that's going on here.
So another card from MH2 I have yet to sink my teeth into is Ragavan, and just like, am I really going to buy this card? Like, it can't last forever, right?
I own them. If
I
I
don't
own
know
them
if
and
I
you
want
don't,
to.
there's no way in hell it's getting banned. Because I'm very lucky, and you are the
Well,
poster child for buying a thing and it getting banned.
so are you gonna try and talk me into buying into this now? Because then you're going to ruin your own Ragavans. You realize that?
Oh no, buddy, you should
Just
stay
borrow yours.
Ragavan free. You should play, Is it Prowess or whatever with no
Okay.
Ragavans, and you know, just keep riding that like, oh, I know it's going to get banned for 5 years until maybe they finally do it.
It worked with Uro. That's been like my real success story thus far. I'm never buying this card,
Okay,
but I would put Ragavan in the same category for sure.
man, I actually just like Uro though. Like I bought them. I played in maybe 2 tournaments. I had a lot of fun. Card is gas. It's 2 gas.
Two gas,
Two
yes.
gas. But it was good times. I liked it. And then I don't know. I feel like there was some like midweek Magic thing on Arena a long time ago when I played like the Golos deck, or it was like
Hmm.
Highlander or something, and I got to like play Uro again. It was like hell yeah.
Nice, reunited.
I like it. It's fun for me, but it's also busted and should not be legal anywhere. So
Yeah, terrible to play against. Terrible when you're both playing it. If someone's just willing to let you like do Uro things by yourself, it's a very good feeling. But that's generally a good sign of this card should not exist.
yeah, come back, Demir Mill. Now back with 2 Mesmeric Orbs. I guess that's fine. I think that makes sense actually because people cut the card a little too hastily because you had so many mill spells, and then it always seemed like you play against control deck or something where the games go longer and they actually have interaction, and it's just like so hard to actually kill them. Whereas Mesmeric Orb was the card that just beat them straight up all the time.
At least as a sideboard card, right? Like, you could
Yeah.
always have some outs in those forms. So yeah, it is odd that that card just completely left the deck for a while.
So I don't know. Mill is whatever, but I like this version.
That I have nothing to add.
Hybrid 7, Izzet Storm, 2 considers. Isn't that weird considering they used to have like sleight of hand and stuff? I guess they just don't anymore. There's like Salundi Vision, Max Remand, 4 Serum Visions, and then considers are the only other cantrips. But
Well, we're a wish deck now, baby. We go get whatever we need, and we're just fine.
no, I know, but it just seemed like cantripping on 1 was where you want to be. I guess now playing like Salundi Vision on 1 is kind of where you want to be.
Yeah, yeah. Ideally, just work that out. And building a storm deck is odd. It's just very different from like the typical rules of deck construction and this lean into Salundi Vision. I do like it. I think like it makes sense. It allows you to play these longer games. I also just kind of like Storm. I think again, if I was talking like underrepresented decks, I would say Storm is one of them. There should be more people playing Storm. It feels kind of old fashioned, and it's weird to play a combo deck that's shooting for turn 4 when there are like legitimate turn 3 combo decks, but it's just very resilient, very hardy, and very challenging when your opponent doesn't really know what they're doing against it, which I think is going to be a more recurring theme as we return to like these PTQ scenarios. People just haven't played against Storm for a long time, and I think
Yeah.
it'll catch them unaware.
When I played the Vengevine deck, I lost in top 8 to Storm. And it was like, damn it.
I used to
Because
play a lot of Izzet Storm,
it's
and
it's a good deck, and it was just
it
a
is.
bad matchup. And I think that could persist for a lot of decks.
I
Any
agree with
sort
you.
of like fair Urza Saga deck, it's like, oh, I actually just can't interact with them enough to put them away.
Yep. Yeah, and there'll be stop gaps. Like a lot of people have cards that are half good against Storm, but nobody plays anti-Storm cards at this point, right? And now that you have this wish package or even Gifts does a really good job of just like getting through whatever it is your opponent's trying to do.
Yeah. It's kind of not weak, but vulnerable, I guess, to Solitude and Fury, where they get to interact with your accelerators, I guess, on the cheap, which is a thing that most people didn't have before. But this deck is
Yeah.
also just playing the full 8
Yeah.
because, yeah,
And you can also play without them too. Like you don't want to, but you can.
I don't know that it's so much easier to win with one of these things because like we don't have Rite of Flame or Seething Song, right? So it's like the +1 rituals. Like you need something to generate mana, and I think that they just don't generate enough without having an Electromancer.
Yeah, you have to really get past the flames value, and it takes time. So like it
Yeah.
really depends. Like Solitude or Fury plus Clock is messed up. That is very hard for you to challenge. If it's just
Right.
like Control Solitude, then I can reset up and play around that.
Yeah, I don't mind that because you'll sit back, you'll draw some cards, you'll eventually find another one.
Yeah.
And I mean, Remand against Omnath is just embarrassing, right?
Mhm.
From the Omnath side of things. So I don't mind this deck too. I kind of like it set up.
Cool.
Oz Senpai, ooh, Teamer, Reclamation, just all all the 2-for-1s. Ren and 6, Archmage's Charm, Counterspell, Fire Ice, Growth Spiral, Lightning Bolt, Memory Deluge, Typhoon, Wilderness Wreck, 24 lands, 1 Nexus. I really think that these decks just don't play enough lands. I realize that Ren and 6 does help a lot and makes it so Growth Spiral is basically always active, and you have like Charm as a 2-for-1 and Deluge as a 2-for-1, and you're always cycling and whatnot, but man, I would really love to see at least one other land in this deck.
What if that one land
Nope.
was a second? Oh, okay.
I mean, if there's any deck that you're going to play Vantage,
This is it. This is the deck where you can do it.
It's Wilderness Reclamation. But even then, you have 4 copies of Deluge. When are you ever activating Vantress?
Should be almost never.
Whatever.
Definitely
At least this deck has 24 lands. Vantress is mostly a free roll. They're playing 3 Hinterland Harbors. I would rather just have a 4th Hinterland Harbor, man. You're 3
I'm going to give you a
colors.
second Castle Vantress instead, and that's the best I can do.
I have 17 green sources and 14 red with Bolt and Fire Ice. I don't know, man. Play a Sulphur Falls or Hinterland Harbor. Better yet, add a land and play, one of each or 2 Sulphur Falls or something. Dude, do something.
Deal.
Dude, Vantress doesn't even cast Ren and 6. What do you do? Like, you have to play 4 Triomes in these Teamer decks. That's what I figured out, because you need to be able to play Ren and 6 on 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so just basic island is kind of terrible. Well, like basic lands in general are pretty terrible, because if you fetch a mountain because you don't want to take 2 damage, then your charms don't work, right? So just like, you just need all the Hinterland Harbors and stuff. You just can't even play Vantress, I don't think. Whatever.
Senpai disagrees.
My weekly Castle Vantress rant has come to an end.
Vantress check-in. The Vantress corner here on the Arena Decklist podcast.
Next deck. Hey Akita. 80 cards. Damn. Okay, so this is Omnath, right? And you have some Utopia Sprawls.
Yeah.
And you have Stoneforge Mystic, because why the hell not? And then you also have Saheeli Felidar Guardian, but also a Shigeki to Eladamri's Call for to just draw 3 cards. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this deck could probably pick a lane and be well served for it. But it's kind of trying to do it all. That's cool. I mean, one of the things about playing 80 cards is you do get space for all these packages, and you play Stoneforge Mystic alongside, your 2 equipments, and then still have room for all this other stuff.
3 equipments.
3 equipments, yeah. We have Lion Sash. That's neat, but I don't think it's good.
It's weird that there are so many Stoneforges showing up when, in Hammer, yes, slam dunk 100%, right? Mm-hmm. But in like the Jeskai control or the 4 color, it's like, did Stoneforge suddenly get good, or had it just been 3 months and people were like, oh yeah, I like this card, I want to play with it again?
Well, some of it is like unlocking the equipments, right? Like they were all locked behind Lurrus for a very long time.
Yeah, that's true too.
And I think that's a lot of the discovery process.
But it's not like this deck would have played Lurrus, right? Like, you're always going to be a Yorion deck. You always
that's true. In the context of this deck, that doesn't apply.
And blue-white too, mostly, because you'd rather have the Planeswalkers than anything. So
yeah,
people are weird. I love it.
Maybe then you give up your Kahira, which is no good. You can't afford to do that.
Oh yeah. Sideboard also has 2 Tests of Talents for the Cascade decks, which is hilarious to me.
Nice, yeah, got him.
Next deck, Craft, Teamer, Scapeshift. I think it was people in our Discord maybe talking about this, where it has 3 galvanic iterations, and they're like, what the hell are you doing with this? Are you copying a growth spiral? Are you like, I guess it works with Search for Tomorrow to maybe get you to Scapeshift faster. The turn you Scapeshift, you have excess mana, so I guess this is like insurance against counter spells. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, I think it's kind of all of that,
Card is unquestionably powerful, and I keep waiting for it to expand into older formats. I feel like there's probably a better home for it, but I don't hate it. Like it doesn't feel useless to me. I'm sure you'll find spots where, and I think the spots where it's good, it's really, really good. Like I think the payout is tremendous on it. So if you find those spots reliably, I'm here for it. I don't hate it at all.
I mean, I could see a world where you test against blue white and it's just like, wow, they have this wall of counter magic. And also, if they have Teferi, then I can't even defend my Scapeshift. So you just throw it out there, watch it get countered, can't do anything about it. And Galvanic Iteration is a card that lets you kind of like grind through their counter magic because you're copying card drawing spells or ramp or whatever. And then, it gives you some proactive insurance against counter spells, even if they have Teferi. So I don't know. I kind of like it.
Now, this does interact the way I wanted to with Search for Tomorrow, right? Where I will be able to play it as like it comes off suspend and get a second search.
Correct, because there are two different triggers. It's like the first trigger is to remove a counter, which you can respond to, and then there's also one when I think it comes off that you could respond to that too.
And you do cast the spell from Cascade or from suspend as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I think just that interaction is like a pretty good push in favor of at least trying this. I mean, that's a big piece of acceleration towards your plan of hitting this land threshold.
Yep. Next up, Pizza Puss numbers Jund, Living End. So you get Grief and Fury, some Seasoned Pyromancers, Twin Shot Sniper as sort of a Bone Crusher that then goes to the graveyard. And you get access to Beseiju. Sideboard has like some Ley Lines, Blood Moon, Foundation Breaker, Ricochet Trap. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going to say this is better than like the blue version, but I do think there's a world where you're very concerned about creatures where having this setup is really good, and you're going to kill a lot of stuff with your Fury Twin Shot Sniper setup. And you know, if there's a lot of disruptive creatures or creatures that just like have to die before you can combo off because either they'll kill you or they make it too hard to combo off, then this deck probably has a tome. That doesn't strike me as the format we're presently in, though.
The problem with this is that you have to play Demonic Dread.
That is a problem, for sure. Probably the last time I played Living End, I had to play Demonic Dread, and it does not feel good.
Yeah, it was the only option. Seasoned Pyromancer helps with it a little, but this deck only has 2 copies. And it's a sorcery, so it's not even like you could evoke a Grief and then target it or anything.
Yep.
And
it's a complete nightmare.
Yeah. Sometimes they played a Dryad Arbor so that they would have a thing to target. Like it is not easy. So
agreed.
I kind of want to shy away from this. I liked Living End the best when you were just like a Fulminator Beast within land destruction deck.
Those were good times. Yeah. And I agree. It seemed like the best place for that setup. Not the world we're living in presently, though.
Nope. Joe Brook, Throes of Chaos, Calibrated Blast, no Death Shadows. This one is also just blue-red mana base and looks very budgety because it's like Temple of Epiphany, Swiftwater Cliffs, no Steam Vents.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this could just be another pretty solid budget option if you just want to jam.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Mishra's Factory in this deck, too. I don't think I actually, allowed myself to realize that was an option in Modern.
Yeah, you can technically play it.
What's it in? Where'd it come from?
MH1.
Okay. I just blanked that out somehow.
Most decks play Mutavault instead or some colored creature land. So RVNG, Temur Living End, no Grief.
Yeah, I just think you need the Grief setup. I appreciate the blue setups for Living End. I think Colossal Sky Turtle was a cool find, but Grief is too valuable most of the time. So not a tremendous fan. You're doing subtlety stuff instead, which, again, all of these Living End variants, there's probably a format for them. I believe they could all have their place. I just think the default best mode is going to be the Grief setup. I
think so too. It is weird to play a deck like this without some interaction. And granted, you have the turtle and the lands. This one has 2 Beseijus, 1 Otawara.
Yep.
But yeah, not having an Evoke Elemental seems strange to me because I feel like you kind of need it. And what is Windcaller Aven doing for you? Well, I guess this one has subtlety. So maybe that's good enough. But yeah, with Windcaller Aven instead of the other stuff, it reads to me like their Living Ends were not good enough. Like you would resolve Living End and still maybe lose. So now, this one has better cyclers in it, more powerful cards. So, you don't have that fail rate anymore.
All right. Yeah. Again, some scenarios, that's going to be what you want.
Next one, Modern State of Mind, Gruel, Valakut, sort of a Scapeshift deck. Dryad, Primeval Titan, Ren and 6, 28 lands, but 4 Wish for the Scapeshift instead of playing it naturally, which I get because the turn you Scapeshift, you have 7 mana, but also the good thing about Scapeshift was that on whenever you play your 6th land, you could also search for tomorrow or explore or crack a Tribe Elder and then Scapeshift.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe with Dryad, that becomes less of an issue because you're not as capped by acceleration or making land drops or however you want to describe it. So I get it, but it's just like, just wishing for like a Force of Vigor or an Alpine Moon or something in game 1 really help you that much. I'm so skeptical.
Never again. Never again will I register Gruel Scapeshift with 28 lands. I've been tricked too many times.
The one I liked was the like Max Garen Brig, Arboreal Grazer, just try to turn 3 Primeval Titan every game. And I think that that's fine. But yeah, trying to like turn 4, turn 5 people, maybe. And this deck has a lot of the problems that the deck did before where you're just so threat light.
Yeah, it feels like a regression. That's a good way to put it.
Conus, 4 Tainted Indulgence, let's go. 24 Esper lands, also Faithful Mendings, Counterspell, Teferi, Archon of Cruelty, Persist, Prismatic Ending, Thoughtseize, 1 Unburial Rites, 1 Obscura Charm. Okay, I mean, you have the 4 Teferis.
Yeah.
And 2 March of Otherworldly Light.
I mean, this is what I envisioned for the Prince in Streets, what they would do to Esper decks. I don't know, man. I mean, it feels like you're interacting on the right axes for me, and you're getting just enough sort of stopgaps for your opponent where they're not going to be able to do whatever they want. Your proactive plan it's fast, it's powerful. You're almost always going to have a Teferi. You try and play like 5 copies, which is really cool. It wouldn't surprise me if this deck is pretty good. I do think it needs a B plan, and it needs to be like a pretty solid B plan. I don't see one here.
Yeah, so some Turoks in the sideboard.
Yeah, you got to do better than that, I think. I don't know what it is yet. There's got to be something, though, when, maybe you can even push a little harder on Obscura Charm and find your threat in that space. Find a nice, cheap, multicolored threat. So I would take a look at this deck, and I could actually see myself working on tuning this a little bit. I'm kind of intrigued by it.
So I've played decks like this where, all right, you have 8 discard outlets, right? And you have 4 big things. This one is not playing Unmarked Grave because it's kind of mopey, even though they do have 1 Unburial Rites. And it's just like you dig and you dig and you dig and you just like never find an Archon soon enough.
Yeah.
And I could just imagine that happening so often. I don't want to be any part of it.
I mean, 4 Faithful Mending, 4 Tainted Indulgence. I know what you're saying. It's still going to happen. It should happen less, but it is still going to happen.
Yeah, but like it could just not be in the top half of your deck,
You're
and
right.
then what are you doing? Like you have endings and marches and like Thoughtseize, I guess, but like you don't even want to play a long game with Thoughtseize in your deck. Granted, you have ways to loot it away, but like you don't have that many ways to actually play defense. So how long can you actually hold on while you're digging for this thing?
Yeah, that's what I think your B plan is supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be another creature that you would both be okay with bringing back.
Persist. Play 2 Muldrifters.
Okay, that's one option. I also think you could just play like you're going to have to work your counts a little bit, but Solitude also seems completely fine to me as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing the Solitude Muldrifter stuff, then I like some Ephemerates too. And then, you're getting pretty far in the weeds, I think. But I do generally like those versions.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to poke around with this deck a little bit, see if I can find a unique angle for it.
And then the way to beat control decks without the graveyard is just blink your Muldrifter, go to town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Zhang Fang, Spike deck, Lotus Field, Blood Sun, Cryptic Command, Memory Deluge, Valakut Awakening, Solitude Fury, Teferi. This is basically the exact same as the deck that we talked about like 2 months ago. I guess now it has an Otawara.
I mean, it's probably a good card here, but I don't think that was the problem previously. So fun deck, cool deck, very cool deck building. I don't think you really have to worry about this too much, though.
Yeah. King Hexar, Ragavan, Tarmogoyf, Territorial Kavu, Scion of Draco. Oh my God.
Just doing it.
Okay,
we're all in.
So giant animals, right? And then 4 copies of Ob Nixilis. Also, Lightning Bolt, Tribal Flames, some Inquisitions, a couple of Prismatic Endings, a couple of Expressive Iterations, 21 land, 1 Arlen, the Pax Hope. I don't get it. But
Nope, me neither. But I love it. I love what we're trying. Like I said, if you're going to do something cool with Ob, I want to see someone push on this angle. Like, how do you cheat and get these things bigger, cheaper, and get like really, really big, solid Obs? Here's a way to do it.
sack your Tarmogoyf? Like,
I know, like you're supposed to be using it to beat down, but like the plan of Ob your opponent looks really good alongside Tribal Flames, right? Like you're pressuring their life total so well.
And it works both ways, right? Because you could just draw 7 yourself and you draw a bunch of bolts and Tribal Flames, or they're at 7.
Yeah, that works. Also, like, you don't have to sacrifice the Ob. Like, you can just play your Ob. I know that like feels bad and you want to get more out of it, but if you're
silly, I would never.
No, but listen, if you're successfully beating down,
no,
like
I know.
It's just another burn spell essentially. So I like that it's being very modal in this scenario. And like, look, you're not trying to do that, but if you ever have to, it's like, okay, as long as I'm still advancing my plan, I don't really object to this.
Sideboard has a Gigantha, also has 2 Torpor Orb, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Alpine Moon, 2 Hidetsugo, consumes all. These are very, very good hate cards that I like. So this is a very nice selection.
No, I think this is a pretty well-built deck, with the exception of the Arlen that I don't understand whatsoever. And maybe there's a purpose for it, but I think there's something interesting here. Very clearly a thoughtful deck and trying to like get more out of Ob than many people are.
Yeah. Jancy Keys, Rakdos, no new cards.
Rakdos cards.
Ragavan, Dothi Voidwalker, Croxa. I mean, I guess you're playing Liliana the Veil now that you don't have Luris, but this is all pretty normal stuff. I think that this deck is fine.
Yep, your cards are good. Probably not good enough to like turn Modern on its ear, but you have good stuff.
Next up, Darshik. Let's go. 19 lands, 4 Aether Vial, 37 humans.
Big commitment to the humans. Any new humans we're working with here, or is usual cast of characters?
All right, so the one that I like and the one that I was building was 3 Imperial Recruiters with a Turok main, and then you have a white-black mana base with silent clearings. This one is a little bit different, where they don't have Turok because they're playing Unsettled Mariner, which I understand because Mariner is good against Fury and is okay against Solitude, but not great. And I definitely think that you need something like that. And I think the thing that I like is Lavinia.
Okay. I'm starting to see more Lavinias in the Modern format in general, so I buy that.
Yeah, in the Hammer deck for sure.
Yep.
And she is a human, so that's good. I actually like humans. I just sold my Cavern Souls because they were like 90 or something. And I don't have those. I don't have Esper Sentinels, but I picked up like basically everything else that I was missing. Like new Secluded Courtyards. I got those.
Nice.
Let's go.
Yeah, I got your back on those cards. Don't worry.
Are your caverns foil? Did I ask you that?
Oh, they're foily.
Yeah, that's fine.
They're the foil full arts too, like the box toppers.
Oh, okay. Those are nice. I actually might have one of those.
There you go. You're all set. I think I only have 3 because I never needed all 4 because mine were for Amulet, obviously.
What the hell? Come on, man. You got to complete the playset.
No, I don't work that way. I buy as needed because I don't use anything anyway, so I may as well not max out on these things.
I work that way in the worst way possible, where even if it's, I don't know, Cavern and Amulet makes sense, where it's like you will very, very, you're unlikely to play 4 of these, but it would just pain me to only have 3 and not have the 4th. And then there are some decks where like now I'm building a bunch of decks and it's like I have 4 Meddling Mages in humans, but I also want to play one in the 4 color deck. So now I just have to own 5, you know?
Just print yourself out a proxy, slide it in your sleeve. You can move that stuff around.
Yeah. Or just, play 3 in humans, right? That's completely fine.
Yeah. Just make your deck worse.
No, I'm never doing that either.
No, I'm only buying more cards.
Building like Canadian Highlander decks too is like, oh, well, now I need an extra one of these for the, it's so bad.
Yeah, slippery slope.
I gotta downsize my collection and hopefully try and stop doing that. But slippery slope. I like humans. It's like solidly tier 2, tier 1.5, but I do think it is underrated, and I think that there are a lot of things you can do to improve it, and people are just like, I'm gonna put random cards in my deck, and we haven't really gotten to the point where it's like, okay, this is humans, but built in such a way where it's actually kind of resilient to Fury. And once we get to that point, I mean, this one has 3 Forge Tenders in the board, so that's good. But, there are definitely improvements to be made to this deck, and I would not be surprised to see it in the top tier at some point.
Nice.
Genelith, Grixis, Shadow, exact same main deck as before with no companion. Sideboard Corpse Explosion, holy crap.
That is a wild one.
What are you even trying to sweep?
Humans? I don't know. I struggled to come up with anything there.
I mean, they could like living end you, and you could. This is a thing that could actually like sweep a living end board by exiling a shadow, but
yeah, maybe that matters in some scenarios.
It's the planeswalkers too. I don't know if that matters, but I don't think this is good. But that's why out of all the cards in Streets to show up, I did not expect to see this one.
Yeah, it was good to see these oddball cards get a little bit of use.
Okay, Antoine numbers 4 color, no Risen Reef because they have 4 Traverse, 4 Mishra's Bauble, and Unholy Heats. I have not seen much chatter about this. This version showed up in one of the deck dumps maybe like 3 weeks ago or something. Mm-hmm. I like it a lot, but you need to play 4 Risen Reefs because it actually gives you something to traverse for that you actually want. And all the Risen Reef ones are like, oh, I'm playing 4 Eladamri's Calls because I have to find my Risen Reefs. Just mash the 2 together.
That makes sense to me. I could see just moving towards Traverse. I mean, do you think... It's weird, though, because you're 80 cards and you're pretty reliant on getting one of these oddball types into the bin, right? To be able to leverage this Traverse.
So instant sorcery creature land is not that tough because you have the elementals, right?
Okay, no, that's true.
And you have Mishra's Bauble to be a wild card, and then the 8 planeswalkers are also wild cards, and they die pretty easily. So from my experience, which is limited, but maybe not that limited, like there are definitely games where it's not online on turn 2. And maybe if they know about it, then they don't attack your Teferi that's on 1 because they'll just try and attack it next turn or whatever.
Yeah, you can live with that scenario for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, there are times, but it's also like this one even plays 27 land, which is so low compared to the ratio of like standard decks. And it's like, I get it. I mean, you have Traverse, you have Bauble, you have Abundant Growth, you have Wrenn and 6, but I mean, you still want to make all your land drops, right? So
I would go further than that. I think like when you are in heavy mana scenarios, your deck is even better. Like there's so many spots where you just get to leverage, these big turns, and you also have spells that upgrade throughout the game depending on whether you're hardcasting them. Like hardcasting your Solitude is amazing. Hardcasting your Fury is amazing. I'm very happy a lot of the times when I'm hitting 5 mana in these decks. So, and that's just to say nothing of the fact that like you're going to do Yuri and stuff as well.
Right.
And then your hand is just going to be flooded. And even if all your stuff is 3 drops, if you have 6 mana and you can play 2 3 drops, that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that.
So my list currently is 30 land. From this list, I don't have a Witness or a Ragavan. I thought cutting Iteration was heresy, but the Risen Reef versions don't play it. And after playing kind of like with those versions, it's like, yeah, that just completely makes sense. If you're just trying to explicitly search for Risen Reef and protect it with like 3 Ephemerates, then I think that is correct. And then I'm not playing Counterspell, and I have like some Utopia Sprawls.
Okay.
So I like Risen Reef in 4 color a lot, and I think that Traverse Bauble is definitely worth experimenting with. There's some stuff where, Traverse doesn't pitch to Solitude or whatever, but it's so much cheaper. It's so much better. It's another card that increases the range of opening hands you can keep, because if you're light on land, well, you can just fire this off and get a land, and that's fine. Whereas Call is just like clunky and awkward a lot of the time.
Yeah. I think Call might just suck, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, the more I've played with it, the more I'm just like, this card has not scaled up to the modern game.
Right. So anyway, that's my 4 color rant. Next deck, Bo Dingle, Orzhov, Dothi Voidwalker, 2 Tenacious Underdog. Why does that card keep showing up?
I don't know. There's a lot of it.
3 Turoks, Fatal Push, Lingering Souls. Damn, have not seen that card in a while. Prismatic Ending, Thoughtseize, 2 Inquisition, 2 Damn, 2 Kaya, Orzhov Usurper, 3 Liliana, 2 Sorin, 1 Wandering Emperor. This is a deck that looks so bad, and I would happily register it and go 5-3.
Sounds exactly what you're shooting for when you decide to show up with this. I also like that this deck inspired you to say damn twice in your analysis before you even got to the actual card, bam, which is present here.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Sideboard, 4 Vindicate, love it. Kaya's Guile, that could maybe be main deck. It's really good against, kind of everything. Some Ashioks, 4th Turok, Explosives, Fatal Push. All right.
Whatever. Nobody cares what I have to say about this deck. Like, if you play this, it's like hot medium, and you're willing to live with that.
Tenacious Underdog, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
Damn.deck. Next up, Nick Norman, Dredge. The same.
Otherworldly Gaze. More of that creeping in as time goes on.
Oh, yeah. This is like the stock version, right?
Yeah.
All Dark Blasts and Gazes, only 1 Conflagrate, no Loams.
Yeah. That's cool. I like this deck continues to evolve. I think it's probably not moving forward fast enough for the rest of the format, though.
Danny Cheapo, burn. Boros, burn.
No notes. Keep burning.
They don't even have to argue about whether or not they want to play Lurrus anymore.
Nope. They just get to burn people.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Pidboo. Esper Sentinel, Stoneforge Mystic. Urza. No Thought Monitor. It is so weird to me how folks build these decks, because you see the ones with like Thought Monitor and Ingenious Smith, and like sometimes they don't have Mishra's Bauble, which is just like kind of ludicrous to me. It's like, oh, I'll get there eventually, but like Bauble is the best card with Smith, right? Because you just get to grow it immediately and nothing else lets you do that.
Yeah, I would think so.
And it's pretty good with Thought Monitor. And then you see the ones with Urza that usually don't play Thought Monitor, because you're playing this expensive colored card in a deck that really needs to be pretty lean. So I do get that, and I do like that aspect. But even the ones that have like Urza and Smith are not playing Bauble, and it's just weird to me. But like, I mean, this one I kind of understand. It's like Tribute Mage, Thopter, Sword of the Meek type of stuff. So you're just really going for that combo.
Yeah, which doesn't beat anyone. So enjoy. Put it together. It's not a modern combo anymore. It's not good enough.
It does beat people. It doesn't come together very often. It's so easy to disrupt, and the decks are pretty fast.
Right. But like the amount of effort you put into getting it together, if you would put in that effort to almost anything else, you could find yourself in a better scenario.
Yes, probably. Although if we're talking about how the blue-white saga decks kind of struggle to go over the top or whatever, it does make sense to have access to that, I guess, if that is the main thing that you're trying to solve for.
But it only goes over the top of some very specific things. And even then you can play through it.
Let me be clear. I'm talking about the combo with Urza.
Okay, then it goes over the top of some stuff.
Yeah. I'm not like, if you get Thopter, Sword of the Meek, raw against a bunch of people, that doesn't beat anyone. I agree with that.
Right.
100%. But yeah, trying to assemble it with Urza, sure. I get that. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I just wish like the individual pieces, like I would be fine with that combination if the individual pieces were better on their own. If like Thopter Sword was good enough against some people, if Urza was good enough against some people, I kind of think where they both fall right now, neither is good.
Yeah, you have to get all of them together, which even just sticking in Urza is hard enough.
Yes, it is.
And then you need time to like Stoneforge for your sword, or God forbid, Tribute Mage for your sword, you know?
Yeah, good luck.
So yeah, not great. Anyway. SRB 757, some merfolk, some fishies. I'm always curious to see how these folks build their decks. This one is for Tideshaper. I like that. They don't play the Rishadenport merfolk normally. Like basically no one plays that card.
Yep.
Svelun is in all the decks, which is great. Just even as a 4 of. You have like some force negation, some subtleties to pitch extras if you want. This one has 2 Master Waves. Glasspool Mimic is pretty stock at this point. This one overall is relatively tame.
It looks fine. I mean, it looks like a fine version of Merfolk. I think the deck continues to improve. Eventually, it may even be good enough. It would not shock me, because all the pieces are coming together. The Merfolk get better and better. You get more and more free disruption. It gets closer and closer to Legacy Merfolk, when that deck was actually okay. I'm not even going to say it was good.
It wasn't, dude.
Was okay.
Chill won an open with Merfolk, and I played it the next week, and it was god awful. It was, playing like zombies in Nashville, right? I was like, I don't know, I just play Grizzly Bears, right? And my opponent dies. That was standard. Yep. I was trying to play Grizzly Bears and kill my opponent in Legacy. Shocker, It didn't work.
Yeah. It was a medium deck. It was never great. It was way overrepresented. I mean, many people played that deck in Legacy.
Yeah.
But it's getting closer to that version, which maybe is good enough for Modern.
I talked about how humans needed like Fury, Solitude, Installation, and this deck has 2 subtleties, so that's kind of cool. And
That is cool.
Svaelun is sort of okay. Like your other Merfolk get Ward 1. If you have 2 other Merfolk, this is indestructible. So it gives you reasonable Fury protection, but it itself just gets Solituded, which is really awkward.
Can't cover all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta fill in the gaps where you can. I think subtlety is cool in that it allows at least some counterplay, but I don't know. There's some issues here for sure, and they probably will never be solved, quite frankly.
Probably. Until MH3 or 4.
Let's shoot for MH4. I think that's more realistic.
Were there Merfolk in Lord of the Rings? Will there be any Merfolk in that set?
Not really. No,
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get Merfolk there.
All right. Anna Disciple, 80 card, mono white taxes. So no Oath of Nissa splash here. No Beseiju. Just cards.
I miss Beseiju already.
I do too. Eater of Virtue. What the hell do you do? It's a Bone Splitter, legendary. Oh, yeah. The thing that gets the abilities from the things that died.
Right. I don't know what that's accomplishing.
I don't get it. Next. Ow. Oh, what the hell? Okay, this is...
Here we go. Now we're talking, baby.
Okay.
We found a way to empower Ob Nixilis.
Okay. Well, yeah. You buried the lead. Affinity, Sojourner's Companion, only 2 Mirror Enforcers, get out of here. Cranial Plating, there we go. Dude, we did it.
Yep.
Thoughtcast, Expressive Iteration, Thought Monitor. So yeah, only 2 obs though. It's just like, why? What are you doing? You're not even trying.
I say commit to the obs. We don't need these expressive iterations. Who cares? We don't need to draw that many cards. We're just going to use ob and dominate that way.
Gonna plating, hit you for 10 with my Ornithopter, play my ob, sack it, alt, fireball you.
Love it.
I don't think it's good, but...
No, it's not good.
I don't know.
Even waste any more thought on it. There's no way.
Even just like Sojourner's Companion for 0 mana and then like ob, sack the companions. This is not that bad. You know, like some Frogmites to defend.
We've got to play 8 bridges here. So...
Well, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
It's probably fine. Probably fine.
Tap lands.
And then not even playing obs in the sideboard. Maybe they could only get 2 because they were like
70 they're like 80
tickets
right now, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Next up, Sandile. 80 cards. Yes. This is the 80 card deck I want to see. All right. So Urian, right? Azorius, right?
Yep.
Some Esper Sentinels, Ranger Captains, Wall of Omens, Teferi. Got like some brought-backs, you know? And then you go all the way up to Sun Titan, baby. I love it.
Sun Titan is an old school commitment right there. Just doing the big dummy. But there's a lot of cool like Sun Titan interactions. Like I certainly have never played Sun Titan alongside Ranger Captain of Eos to go get a Thraben Inspector, and you just set off all these little weird bits of value.
Well, you just lock them out with the Ranger too.
Yeah, you can just keep buying back Ranger, sure.
No more Supreme Verdicts for you.
That's something. It'll matter. I think there are spots where that'll definitely matter.
The thing that sucks about this deck is that it plays a Myria, and I don't know that anyone has ever actually triggered this and had it be relevant, you know? And you play a Myria, and that means that you're kind of locked into playing planes, or in this case, Field of Ruin, which can get you some planes, right? And then that means that you can't play Caverner Souls to go with your Sun Titan. I would really like that, but you do have Teferis and like Ranger Captains and stuff, so I kind of get it, but it's basically just like, I think Myria might stink.
It might stink, but I don't think you're going to have a hard time resolving your Sun Titans at the same time. Like, I think you just have enough ways to make that happen.
I'm skeptical, but okay.
Assuming you survive that level. I mean, that's the bigger question. Like, are you actually making it to that point of the game?
Wall of Omens, dope. Solitude, dope. 3 copies of Supreme Verdict, perfect. Things like Charming Prince, Flicker Wisp, not about it, but whatever. Spreading Seas is pretty solid. March, when you're generating a ton of card advantage, seems pretty damn good to me.
Yeah, these brought-backs are just going to go off in some scenarios, huh? Just doing stuff.
Yeah,
None
Solitude, Ranger, fetch lands.
Yeah,
this deck started popping up a while ago, and I like it. This was like a really, really old standard deck where at the time I couldn't really appreciate it, and then over time I've gotten very fond of Sun Titan. So if I end up playing this on stream or something, don't be surprised. I would not play this at an event though.
I would be more surprised if the stream happens than if you end up playing this deck on stream, quite frankly.
Give it time, dog.
Okay. I believe in you.
Don't be disparaging, man.
No, I'm not being disparaging. Come on. That was a very easy cheap shot that you set me up for. I had to take that one.
I understand. And this is one of those things where it's like, oh, haha, we laugh and joke around with each other. That touches a nerve because I'm trying.
Okay. Look, I will own up to that. I apologize. No, that's not my intention at all.
That's cool. It was within bounds. It hits a nerve because I am trying my best. And I know you are. Do think
I support you 100%.
And I know you do. So that's it. It's just like, all right, that just, hit me in a bad place. And I know you didn't mean anything by it. And I think that we should just address it right now.
Fair enough. And I appreciate that. And dude, that's the core of a good friendship, is that someone steps a little bit out of line, put them in their place. Like, there's no reason for that shit. If I hit a nerve, I want to know about it. I'm not trying to, I would never do something to like purposely poke at your nerves, right? That's never my goal.
And I know that. And I mean, that's part of why we're friends too. But
agreed.
I think normally I would have just like buried that and been resentful. You know what I mean?
I'm glad that wasn't the approach you took.
Yeah, because it's just so bad. But it's like, all right, I'm like pretty offended right now. But like the reason I'm offended isn't because of like what you said or did. It's because I know that I'm not holding up my end.
You'll get there, man.
That's
no one believes in you more than I do. You'll get there eventually.
Yeah. So that's all. And then it's just like, yeah, like you don't know that, right? Like, so it is completely free for me to bring it up. And it's just like, yeah, hopefully you don't dagger me about that in the future, because then after I've told you and you do it, it's like, okay.
Then I'm just an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Anyway, we're good. I'm trying to stream, and I hope that lets people know that I do think about this a lot, and I am trying, and I do really care.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Conus. Another blue-white Urza deck. Okay, I lied. This one does have Urza and Thought Monitor, but it is Ingenious Smith with Thought Monitor, still no Mishra's Baubles. They do have 4 Ether Spell Bombs, which I kind of like, because it was like anytime I naturally drew that card, it was sort of gas, it's like the Vapor Snag family of things that deals with Murktide Regent. That's not completely embarrassing. 2 Moonsnare Prototype, 2 Springleaf Drum, kind of a weird mix, but I sort of get it. And Moonsnare Prototype only making colorless has been worse than I thought it would be.
I agree with that. It's so funny, like, there's so many ways that these decks have picked up to just deal with random thing, right? Otawara, Moonsnare Prototype. And you think that's such a big deal because that was a huge problem for these decks for the longest time. It just hasn't moved the needle, though. And I'm sort of shocked to see that be the case.
It's the clock and being able to not just deal with like individual things, but when your opponent like goes wide, for example, it's like you have no comeback mechanism for that. So you just have to do your thing early and be able to like stay on battlefield and keep up with them. And this is like a tall order a lot of the time because your stuff is so clunky. And in the case of like Thought Monitor and Thought Cast, it's like those cards are really good, really efficient, but only very late in the game.
Feels like we need a Blastoise to just kind of level this deck out a little bit.
Yeah, you need something. Obviously, like some Moxes would help, right? Like Mox Opal was the thing that allowed you to compete, and it was more than compete, really. It was like, oh, well, now I'm the deck that's ahead. But
yeah. What do you think is, I mean, this is a little silly, but what's the effect of just like putting Mox Opal back into this format? Is that net positive, net negative?
I don't think anyone wants KCI.
Okay.
But I really don't like it when one deck gets a busted accelerator and none of the other decks do.
It's just so hard because all their cards are so much further behind on rate. Like nothing works without Mox Opal. It's just all not good enough.
Yeah. I mean, they keep getting new stuff, which moves them closer and closer, and these decks keep being somewhat successful. I mean, there's a bunch of different versions of it that are showing up in the 5.0s, right? But like, I never really see them doing well in the challenges.
Right.
And that is a better test of your metal generally than just can you 5.0 random league or not. So
truth. Yeah.
I think give it time. I mean, Portable Hole, Ingenious Smith, Esper Sentinel, Thought Monitor, like all these things are like very generous towards this sort of archetype. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more things. It's just like, are we going to get the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
Bacchanal, 60 card, Yawgmoth. No, there is a Magus of the Moon, but there's not a land that casts it.
Yeah, pretty basic stuff here.
Yeah.
Nothing all that exciting. Still like this deck.
Yeah, I mean, you have ignobles and birds. Sometimes you see a stomping ground. That's all.
Yep.
Yeah, deck is good. 4 Grist is good. Shave on Geralf's Messenger, which is funny because when it was playing 4, that card just became $40.
Yeah.
What a hilarious.
Not so much anymore.
What a hilarious $40 card. Dragon Fodder. Oh, God. Gold Hound. For those not in the know, R11, artifact creature, treasured dog, first strike, menace, tap, sack, add 1 mana of any color. I guess you turbo out Lightning Skelemental, and then you have Thunderkin Awakener to bring back your Skelemental, and you have a bunch of Unearths and a couple Ob Nixiluses for the post-combat sack my Skelemental.
Yeah, sack that Skelemental, baby.
Deck is cool. Love that things like this exist.
We could sack our Spike Bellows as well.
Yeah, well, I imagine that this thing's getting evoked.
True. Yeah, now that you say that, I'm actually like, why do we have this Spike Bellows?
Because it works with Awakener.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all. Yeah. It's just got the silly 1 toughness, and you could evoke Village Rites it, which is obviously very expensive, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you sack your Gold Hound to Village Rites your Spike Bellows. I don't know. I'm off it.
Yeah, none of this seems very good, but I continue to be impressed by people's willingness to just make a Skelemental deck happen over and over and over.
Dude.
They got that Rakdos charm in the sideboard too, baby. Go ahead and try and go infinite.
Get out of here.
Blow you up.
Next up, Mankiki. I don't believe it. My eyes do not deceive me. This is another 80-card Emiria Sun Titan deck. It is just enough different from the last deck to also get posted because it has like 1 fewer Wall of Omens, 1 fewer Thraben Inspector, 1 fewer Sun Titan. Is playing more,
right?
Yeah, more Esper Sentinels, another Flicker Wisp, 3 copies of Mana Tithe, has Prismatic Ending over March, and then another Supreme Verdict. So, like, yeah, just barely notching them, I think, being able to get posted. But that means that 2 different people playing Sun Titan 150.
Maybe we're on the dawn of Sun Titan revival. It's just a matter of time. You see what I did there? It's just a matter of time until Sun Titan comes back and takes over another format, and I'm here for it. I'm willing to play more Sun Titan. I'm willing to be hurt again, basically.
Dude, I don't know that Sun Titan ever took over a format.
I think there was a period where it was like probably among the best cards in Standard, right?
Like among the best cards, yeah, but it wasn't like, oh man, I need to play Sun Titan.
I'm trying to put myself back in the original Titan release and think about like where the format was at. I know I played a lot of Sun Titan. That certainly doesn't mean it was in the best deck. Like that was far enough back in time where I was probably actively not playing the best deck and just playing a bunch of Sun Titan.
Yeah, I think Wooly Thoktar is closer to Sun Titan than now is to Sun Titan.
I could see that being the case, yeah.
Ira 0770, Urza Saga, Jund, DRC Ragavan Tarmogoyf, 2 Confidant, 3 Mishra's Bauble, sure. I don't know, some Lilianas.
I just don't believe this could be real in the absence of Luris. I think Luris held too much of this together and not really something I'm interested in anymore.
All right, listen. Jund played 24 land. Granted, they went up to Bloodbraid Elf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people cut a land. I was usually adding a land and just making sure that I had enough utility lands. This deck has 22 lands, 4 of them tapped for colorless, when if you played the old Jund decks, you knew that like playing a Ghost Quarter, it was just going to get you sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just didn't cast any of your stuff. And in a version of Jund that is so low to the ground that basically none of your spells have colorless pips in the mana cost, that's pretty bad. So this one has Tarmogoyfs, Dark Confidants, your Dashing Ragavan, Liliana the Veil, maybe casting a Nile or Pyrite Spellbomb. But Urza Saga is not adding mana a lot of the time. And 22 land at that point is closer to 18 or maybe 19 land.
Yeah, I think these decks basically saw that they could play Liliana now, and they didn't stop and ask if they should play Liliana now.
Well, so Liliana at least gives you a thing to tap for colorless mana if you play on turn 3 or whatever. But
I just don't think that you're going to reliably be at like the 3 mana threshold without a better play to make. Like you'd so much rather 2-spell than 1 Liliana in so many scenarios. So like I'd rather you have more Dark Confidence than Liliana in this case.
Sure, I could see that. Once you add Liliana, I mean, I think maybe you probably should have added a land before. I know that Ren 6 does a lot of heavy lifting, right? But like you don't always have the ability to cast Ren on turn 2 and have it live. Sometimes you need to do other stuff with your mana. It's just like, 22 land is pretty low, and then 4 of them are sagas, and it's like, damn.
It's also funny how, I mean, like I know you're supposed to play Dragon's Rage Channeler in these decks, and I'm not trying to even trim on them, but they're just like at such a low premium here. It feels like it's so hard for them to be as good as they are in other scenarios that it just makes me want to play other decks every time I see them here.
Yeah, I mean, and there are some versions that are just like, well, I'll just cut DRC and play more things like Dark Confidant or play more interaction or whatever. But DRC is, I don't know, it's good with the baubles that you kind of have to play to go with the Urza Saga, and fills your graveyard for Tarmogoyf and whatnot. So I get it, but
we look at a lot of these things as packages and just like don't stray from them, and probably correctly so, but also some packages just don't fit in certain archetypes.
Yeah. I actually think that Jund is fine. I just think that Saga is really not even a thing that helps you all that much. Mm-hmm. Like, it's okay against control decks, I guess, but you're also pretty threatening against control decks with discard and just Ren 6 and Liliana, Dark Confidant 2 to some degree. Ragavan can just win the game on their own. I don't think you necessarily need Saga against them. And it adds, like before when you had Lurrus, it was completely different, right? But now without it, it's just like, you don't have to play Bloodbraid Elf, but like you don't have to play Saga either.
Maybe I also hate Tarmogoyf too. I mean, that should kind of go without saying at this point. We like talk ourselves into Tarmogoyf as a necessary evil, but
Goyf is good when it's also a Swords to Plowshares.
Right.
And it's not blocking much these days.
No.
And as a threat, you can get a threat that is just disruptive instead of big, which, the Rakdos decks that have like Voidwalker, for example, I like that more, even if you're giving up on Ren 6.
Yeah. Tough calls. I mean, it just feels like a deck that could stand to be rebuilt at this point.
Yep. Agreed. More sideboard Phyrexian Crusaders, because why not?
It worked the first time.
Shock Troopa, Mono Blue Tron, basically singleton. Man's been at it for 2 decades,
Right. Why stop now?
Maybe not.
Do you know?
It's pretty.
Do you know that Mirror Shell Crab was a card that actually had me fairly concerned from Kamigawa, and this I don't even recall seeing it any other time, but now.
Channel Mana Leak? Why?
It's just like very free in a lot of spots, like decks that can leverage their graveyard, and even like in Standard, I had some concern of there being just like a control deck that just recycled Mirror Shell Crabs a bunch, and I don't know. It just like had all these alarm bells as doing too much.
Yeah.
Especially at common, like a Ward 3 stapled onto this alongside a counterspell that can't be really interacted with in any way. It just felt like a lot.
This does feel like an uncommon to me for limited.
Yep.
It is weird being a common. Yeah, I could kind of see this as, control deck. You just play, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 of these, and this is just your win condition. But also, we don't really operate in that world anymore.
No, we don't. And it's something that, like, as the format powers down, like, after rotation, I do want to look at again, but I expect it's probably still not going to be good enough.
Fair. Anyway, not only is Mono Blue Tron awkward and pretty mopey, but this one also has a Mirror Shell Crab in it, so... Yeah. Dean, 911, Rakdos... Wait, I lied. Tainted Indulgence. But still, Malakir Rebirth, Fury Grief, but also Archon of Cruelty Persist, Ragavan Seasoned Pyromancer, because why not? 18 lands alongside the Rebirths, and then splashing Tainted Indulgence, which I guess would probably just be looting if you could play that, but we can't. So
that seems correct. I think this deck is kind of cool. Like, I don't think it's good, but it does interact. It does have like a powerful proactive plan. Really good at picking your opponent's hand apart a little bit. Good at killing creatures. Pretty good at its setup in terms of like You've got your Tainted Indulgence, you've got your Seasoned Pyromancer, so you can dig to your stuff. You have just like Ragavans. So as far as this type of deck goes, I actually like some of what's happening here.
Yeah, if this was the type of deck that came out of MH2, I'd be happy.
Yeah, I
Instead,
agree with that.
instead people took the elementals into different, more oppressive places versus just like this fun Malakir Rebirth deck.
Right.
RBS MPT Mono Greentron.
Cool. Get Beseju now, I guess, which is nice. Not a whole lot else going on with this archetype over the last 5 years, but you can't improve upon perfection sometimes. So
Yeah, Creature Suite is different. 4 Worm Coil. All right, I got to pay attention to that because last time I played against Tron with humans, I was like, I'm pretty sure they cut a bunch of them, and then I got Worm Coiled.
Yeah, that's not a good scenario.
Magric, Mono Red, Chalice, Ensnaring Bridge, Blood Moon. This one is 13 lands, but not really because it has 12 DFCs. Hammer of Bogarden. Yeah.
If I ever am at a point where I'm talking myself into Hammer of Bogarden being a real Magic card again, I think I just need to be put down.
I'll take you aside.
That's like, come on, old man.
Yeah.
You've been here long enough. You're obviously not keeping up with the way the world is changing. Let's just go ahead and you put me in like the seniors league or something. That's fine.
Yeah. I'll take you to get some ice cream and I don't know, walk you back home to your recliner, turn on Matlock.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
All right. Free Jat. J-A-T. Four color, Risen Reef, Eladamri's Call, no expressive iteration. So this is kind of like the normal one at this point. This one's a little bit different, like 2 Oath of Nissa, a Witness. I like the Magus of the Moon main. I like that a lot. And this one has 30 lands, so respect.
Nice. On board with your theory.
Yep. Karusu. Okay. This podcast is so long, I don't even want to like get into this too much, but like this is the okay, they changed it actually. They actually figured it out. Okay, so they were playing Utopia Sprawl Season Pyromancer 4 color. And I was like, damn, that's hot. And like played against them and just got absolutely dismantled, right? And then saw the Risen Reef versions and was like, wait, Risen Reef is just a better Pyromancer. It's just not close. And now they have both. They have 4 Risen Reef, 2 Season Pyromancer.
Okay.
So it is cool in that I was like, wait, Reef is just better. And then they eventually came around also and figured out the same thing. That's nice.
Nice. And they just doubled down a little bit, got multiple copies of Reef basically into their deck.
Yeah. And then soon I think they'll, they have 2 ephemerates now. Call. And 3 calls, but it's like, if you try like Traverse Bauble, maybe you figure it out. Maybe you get there. Interesting that like the Risen Reef ones have gone lower on Coatls, and I'm mostly fine with that. And Karusu has 2 Wall of Omens, 1 Coatl. I wonder if Wall of Omens might just be better. Like Coatl is nice because it's like pretty free to just put in your deck because you're playing Snowlands and you just want like an early cycler anyway, and it's a thing to blink, whatever, and then eventually kills Murktide, which can be a problem. But maybe Wall is better. I don't know.
It's interesting. Not like you don't have other outs to Murktide, right? Like you're not one of those decks that's playing super thin to it.
No. But I mean, your removal is like Bolt or Prismatic Ending, sometimes Unholy Heat, like if you are playing the Bauble version or just have a couple of them or whatever. So you need to make sure to save a Solitude, but I guess Teferi can deal with
Teferi. Yeah. Teferi is another one.
But it's not perfect. It's not like, I have this overwhelming amount of things. Whereas you just cycle an Ice Fang early, right? And then it's just there chilling, threatening. And it's not even just Murktide, but it'll handle like DRC and Ragavan, whatever's threatening you. So,
yep.
Interesting. Some like miscasts in the sideboard. Mana Leak. I don't know what's going on here, but whatever.
Very specific plan, apparently.
Ballesta 93, Indomitable Creativity, but with Primeval Titan, now with 2 copies of Prismatic Omen. I guess. Yeah, Brian loves it. I think I like Archon better, but it's close. Anyway.
I don't like any of it.
Oh, God. Sight Winner. Okay, I got kind of scared. It's like I saw sort of like the Rhino stuff, but I also saw Throes of Chaos, and I didn't know if they were like trying to mix and match.
No, I think they're just doubling down on the Rhinos. They love the Rhinos so much, they just want to make sure there's even more Rhinos in their deck.
And there are also Bloodbraid Elves, which can hit endurance in addition to Cascade cards. So it's not perfect.
Yeah, it's probably fine. Yeah. Can live with that.
Yeah, this is a weird build. It is very interesting. I mean, the deck can definitely like run out of Cascade cards and just sort of like flood out, and throws sort of prevents that. And then it can also hit endurance to shuffle in your footfalls when you run out, because I've seen that happen too.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever.
I think like this is someone who probably like played a bunch of rhinos, ran into some very specific problems, and was like, how do I solve these problems?
Yeah.
And I'm all for experimenting like that.
Yep, me too. MTG next level: Rakdos, Grief Fury, Dothy, Voidwalker, Regavan, Seasoned Pyromancer, some Feign Deaths, Malakir Rebirth, Undying Evil. So going a little bit harder on the rebirth stuff and not playing persisty things. And then some main deck Blood Moons.
I get it. I think like having that Blood Moon out in some scenarios is a pretty good idea when you're playing something kind of underpowered like this that has some real holes in its matchup spread.
Oh, so like the mono red prison decks.
That only has holes in its matchup spread. There's no complete parts of its matchup spread.
All right, fair enough. Nazart, 60 cards, had to check. Orzhov, Solitude, Grief, Ephemerate, Malakir Rebirth, Undying Evil. So 10 of those, 3 touch the Spirit Realm, so kind of like 3 more of those. Also has a couple persists, and then Stoneforge Mystic for a Lion Sash to pitch to your Solitude. Has some Spirited Companions to blink with Ephemerates. I don't know.
The Orzhov players are not listening to what we say, Jerry. So just save your voice.
No, it's
true.
Don't
care. They don't care what we think.
D-Man, Eldrazi Trong.
Next.
Dak Faden 07. 4 color, but fancy. Super fancy. Enigmatic Incarnation.
Love this card. I think it's like on the low end of the power spectrum for modern, but maybe if you work hard enough, you can get it to be worth enough to find a way into your deck. And I don't know. I'd have to really like think very carefully about whether we're getting there with this list. It doesn't strike me as like, yes, we've moved forward by playing that card. It's just like, oh, we like this card, so we're playing it for the most part.
Right.
But, you know, I'd like to be wrong about that. Maybe there'll be a moment where Enigmatic Incarnation is good enough.
This is a way to go about things where you really, really want to go over the top of the mirrors.
That is true. And that will happen.
So for whatever that's worth. Although I will note that the Risen Reef ones can go off pretty hard and just like basically draw their deck and like recycle their deck with endurance and everything. Mm-hmm. So going hard with Incarnation might not even beat the smaller, quote unquote, smaller Risen Reef version. Although this one does have Risen Reefs too, just like not as many pitch elementals or ephemerates. So yeah, not great. You play with the Risen Reef one and you're just like, oh yeah, this is definitely the plan to actually like pull ahead in the mid to late. Jetterman Goblins. I don't think we've had any new goblins, so this looks
no, not a whole lot changing here. Still goblins.
Ooh, a Sekenzin. Crazy Baloth Enchantress. I feel like there are metagames where this could be good. You have access to main deck Blood Moon. You have a bunch of cheap removal. Solitary Confinement probably beats some people. I used to basically know what Confinement was great against, like in Extended, right? But now I would have to actually think about it because I haven't thought about crap like that for so long.
Yeah, and it's been a blessing. I'll tell you that much. That's not something we've had to think about. Again, a deck that could steal a tournament, theoretically, just because it does something that doesn't align with anything else. And if you read the metagame perfectly and had to all the type of stuff this preys on, you could very easily run away with the tournament. But it can never be particularly a good deck, a best deck, anything like that. It's just got a lot of holes and pretty easy to interact with if you really want to. That's
good, though. I like that.
No, it is good.
Yeah.
I agree.
I would be tempted to Yuri in these decks. I mean, obviously you need to draw like Scythus or Presence, but the deck's already playing Abundant Growth, so I don't feel like it would be that bad, but there are definitely consistency issues.
Yeah, your cards are just so variable, right? Like half your cards do nothing, half like you don't function without.
Right. Just play Elodombri's Call, man. It's fine.
There we go. We solved it.
Just add 2 mana to all your cards.
Yep. That's always the answer.
The Joy of Gaming, Amulet, main deck Tireless Tracker, 1 Cultivator Colossus, 33 lands, 2 Explorers still as a flex slot. I don't even see in the sideboard. There's the new card, The 7-drop, 7/7, choose 2.
Yeah. Titan of Industry?
Yeah, that one.
Nice.
Absolutely.
That card seems good.
Absolutely busted card in limited.
Yeah.
I don't know if it actually solves problems for Modern, but it's another good tutor target if you want it.
I'm not sure either. I also want to look at like some ramp builds in Standard though, because I think that card is extremely powerful and maybe is like a top end that the Standard format has been missing.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. There's a lot of top end that's viable. Like you could also just do Storm the Festival stuff. And
True.
I don't know that that actually beats anyone, but who knows?
Yeah, having like the immediate life gain is a little bit different, I think. Because like, I mean, you played enough with Storm the Festival. You know how it is. Like you get in spots where you're just like, all right, if I don't hit exactly what I need off the Storm, I'm not coming back.
Right.
Whereas if you're stabilizing a little bit with Titan, I think you could find yourself in a better spot.
Yeah. Tuhon, Yorion humans with Urza Saga. I mean, this one just gets to play everything, right? Because you're Urian, so they have...
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about this as a humans aficionado?
I kind of hate it because you really want like Champ or Noble or Vile on one. And granted, Esper Sentinel in the mix is then like, oh, well, now you just have a bunch of 1-drops, so maybe your top decks are a little bit worse on average, but like they're all pretty good. And I think that certain matchups just dictate that you have the right ones, and like Cavernous Souls can be really good in certain situations. So I don't really see a reason to, but you know, if you're building your humans deck and you're like, well, I want to play Kite Sail and I want to play Turok and I want to play the Mariner or whatever, which isn't even in this deck, granted, but then I guess this is a way to do it. Plus, like the Urian itself is not that great. It's just like this one has 4 Solitudes, so eventually, you know, towards the mid game, you get to Swords to Plowshare or something, and maybe that's worth it. I don't know, but I don't
so I was taking a look at the comes into play abilities and like how much you have to change if you're going to try and take advantage of it. So there's a Deputy of Detention, which is whatever. Imperial Recruiter, which can snowball pretty hard.
Yeah, that one's good.
Kitesail Freebooter, okay. Lagrella the Magpie, which I think like maybe if you are going to lean a little bit harder into comes into play, this lets you do so in a earlier game scenario as well, not just waiting for your Urian to come on board. Of course, you have your Reflector Mages, Thalio's Lieutenant. So like all this stuff seems okay-ish.
Yeah,
I don't hate the idea.
But the thing is like the Lieutenant probably got pretty big and made your other stuff big too.
Probably.
So by then like blinking your stuff, you're like removing 3 power from them. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, we're also talking scenarios where you have access to like 5 mana. You haven't had things to do with all your mana on earlier turns. So like a lot of that stuff is filled in usually by your Horizon lands, which a lot of times you just prefer like something now. Like you're so focused on just keeping the ball rolling with humans that it's really hard to take a turn off to put Urian in hand.
Yeah, I think like your sagas are dying too and not really replacing themselves with mana sources.
Yep.
So I really think the plan is to just exile it to Solitude. I don't even think that you really want to cast it. I mean, maybe you really run out of gas and you can get your Vial up to 5 or something, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, wait, how does it work with Lagrella? So, like, you blink Lagrella comes back, removes your Yorian, and then you just have to find some way to remove it to maybe get to do stuff again. I don't know.
Maybe that's some of what's being set up. Kind of like the old Angel Serenity loops.
Brian Cook, Twiddle Storm.
All I'm saying is everyone better buy those Twiddles now, especially alpha ones.
Yeah.
Everyone buy them.
Offer
Please.
You can't refuse in the main deck, which is 1 mana, negate, controller gets 2 treasures. Cool.
Yep. Twiddle Storming, baby. Buy those Twiddles. Twiddle's hot.
Captain Bathtub, another Hardened Scales deck.
Probably the same problems Hardened Scales had last time we talked about it. Just a few short hours ago. How long is this podcast now? Like 3 hours?
Yeah. Andre 94, normal Rhinos.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm still very medium on this deck, but it's been doing fairly well recently. So eating my words a little bit, it's probably more solid than I give it credit.
Nah, people just aren't playing enough stuff. Okay. Like before, it was like everyone had like the Void Mirrors and the Chalices and Explosives, and now people just like took that stuff out of their sideboard.
Bring it back. Make me look smart again.
Yeah. Finally, oh man. Dylan R, Mono Black Control, now up to 4 March of Wretched Sorrows to just really gain a bunch of life.
Alongside those 4 Cabal Coffers. So we're doing this. We're just in on this Mono Black Control thing.
Yeah.
And
Relics
Look,
main, Liliana the Veil.
One of the first decks I
Karn.
played when I came back to Magic was Mono Black Control. I have a soft spot for it, and still no chance I ever register this deck under any circumstances.
This one doesn't look that bad. You have main deck Relics. You have 8 Planeswalkers, Maze Mind Tome, love it.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like a pretty tuned version of this deck, honestly. For whatever that's worth.
What does a tuned version of this deck get you? That is the question you have to ask.
I don't know, man. So I'm gonna try. I would play Sun Titan before this, right? But that deck is non-zero. I just wasn't gonna play it anytime recently because everyone else was playing it. But that version actually looks good enough for me to be interested.
Yep. Okay.
All right, man. My plan was to go to my apartment office and get my mail key. I've lived here for over a month and they haven't gotten it to me yet. And
wait, so you just haven't gotten any mail for a month?
So I managed to catch the UPS person outside once and was like, hey,
okay,
do you trust me? This is my mailbox or whatever. And he's like, okay. And since then, no, I've gotten my mail once. And then when I have packages delivered, they put them in like a separate mailbox. So I've gotten those.
Okay. I could live without my mailbox almost entirely. Like short of getting cards sent to me, that's about all it's used for. The delivery thing, though, that would cripple me.
Well,
I wouldn't be able to function in society.
The main thing is I'm still waiting for my passport.
Yeah, that seems important.
So I would like to know if I got that because that could potentially affect future plans. But
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, this podcast went too long. Now my office is closed, so whatever. Normally I would procrastinate and then blame it on myself, and now I just don't even have to do that. I'll just blame it on Modern and how beloved the format is.
I'm sure the people are very appreciative. We spent the last 2 hours of our lives speaking about Modern with them, and hopefully maybe someone can provide you with a passport in return for you doing such a good job.
I would like a legal one. That one seems safer to me.
Yeah, I don't think we can get you one of those. I mean, maybe we have like
someone who works
high up
in the thing,
in the CIA or something that doing Jason Bourne type stuff that could get you a fake passport.
Yeah, not very legal. Again.
Well, it's the CIA though, so they just do whatever they want, and they don't worry about it.
Not legal, but government sanctioned. Got it.
Yeah. Yep.
As we do.
That's how that works. Mm-hmm.
Game.
Good luck.